Hey, Elser, what's going on? Can everyone hear me okay? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Gosh, my energy was so low in that video. It was right after an 8-hour drive back from Thanksgiving. I didn't realize it. But we are going to dig into these details, but further. So we're going to take each one of them one at a time and kind of break it down. When we were doing this week's podcast, not this Friday, but the video that we just watched podcast, we were trying to keep it short because of Thanksgiving. So we didn't really have time to dig fully into it. So we just figured we would do it on here and really dig into each of the topics. So but I definitely have to go to the bathroom first. So you want to welcome everyone?
Sure. My hair is like extra of a mess tonight. Oh my god, it's like really a mess. Okay. That's cool though. It's all right. It's in like the messiest bun possible. As long as there's not like a random hair sticking up making me look like alfalfa. I don't think we have any Zoomers in here, do we? They won't know who alfalfa is. How are you guys? Hope you guys are all doing well and that video wasn't too rough. What's going on with this thing? Hey, Kimmy. Dara, Elliot. Good to see you, Elliot. Eric, Sonia, Sydney, J. Ray, Michael. Yeah. Gen X for the win. X and Y. They're the best. Zoomers aren't too bad, but they're just getting their legs. Kimmy, I don't normally theorize far out stuff, but it just dawned on me the possibility the state was protecting a possible relative, dad, mom, sis who snitched. That's a possibility. Hey, Chrissy, Cheryl, Ethereal, Riddler, hey. Kate Spade, what? Yep, there you go. Alfalfa. Hey, CH.
This
Yep.
drink is so flat.
Dude, I loved The Little Rascals as a kid. Like, loved The Little Rascals a lot. I watched a lot of, like, movies that were before my time, though. Hi, Kimberly.
I was not a movie watcher when I was a kid.
No, you were just psycho.
Yeah.
Thanks for renewing your membership, Riddler.
Yeah, Riddler coming in hot.
Hey, Devo, Julie.
I grew up in Southern California and I had all land around me, which is really rare for California, but undeveloped land all around me. So like we called it the field, and I had a field to the left of my house, a field to not a field to the right. To the right, we called it the ditch, and it was a huge storm drain that had like a giant tree swing in it. And then across the street, we had another field. And it was all undeveloped houses. And then they tried to come in and develop them, but it ended up not working out. And like, I wasn't the only troublemaker where I lived. Okay. There was a lot of troublemakers, and multiple times when they were trying to build houses to like the left of our houses, kids kept lighting them on fire. Yeah. So like, it would be a ton of wood. It would just be like the bare bones, and the kid would light it on fire.
That's terrible. You know,
Yeah.
that's funny because I had an area like that by my house growing up, and there were 2 subdivisions across from each other, like, totally on the opposite ends of town, basically. But I guess they're both kinda on the outskirt, but they planned to make those 2 connect. So, like, the whole subdivision eventually was gonna, like, cross across town, and, but they never did it. It just stayed woods, and, we had many crazy things happen back there. Like, we had a fire pit back there. People tripped on all kinds of hallucinogens back there, and then one time there was a fight so big, like, literally 2 to 300 kids in a circle out there
Yeah.
with, like, 3 in the middle.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it wasn't me. I would cop to it if I lit one of them on fire. I will tell you though that I have a really funny story where I lit the ditch on fire. So like, there's this big ditch on the side of my house that had a tree swing up in it, and there were a couple things we did with that because the drainage system for all those houses ran through there, like down the side of it. These cement tubes ran down the side of that storage drain. But when I was like 11 or 12, I wanted to do a Molotov cocktail for the first time and find out what that was like. So I got a big old bottle of gas because, you know, we rode dirt bikes and stuff. So like, we had bottles laying around and gas tanks and all kinds of stuff. And I made the Molotov cocktail and got it all ready and lit it on fire, and I threw it into this storm drain that goes underneath the road, and it didn't break. Okay, it just rolled in there like, you know, and all the gas came out into running water, and it lit 100 feet. Like, the gas got into the running water, and it just started lighting all the way down as far as I could see. And gas burns black, like really black. So the whole road got shut down. There's black smoke coming from both sides of the road, and so dark cars would not drive through it. So there's like
Oh
a line
gosh.
of 50, and this was a busy road too. So there was like a line of 50 cars one way, a line of 50 cars the other way. I just ran, dude. I didn't even watch the rest of it. I was like, no, I'm out of here. I'm gonna be in trouble. But yeah, it was funny.
He is Spanky. That is what he is. Um, Hi, Cynthia. Hi, Moto
Yes.
Man.
Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. I know I was
Yes.
talking to a lot of you in the premiere. So,
Hey, Queen Elsa
I
and
thought
Katie.
I thought this was a good topic though. And I almost wish that we had covered this topic when we were doing like the regular editing, not not the Thanksgiving editing, but that's okay. It gives us a chance to go into it here. But welcome everybody to the True Crime Talk Show. And make sure if you have not checked out our podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, anywhere that podcasts can be found, you do that. And you can find us under Thought Riot, the True Crime and Criminal Culture Podcast, and the True Crime Talk Show. So welcome everybody, and we will get into it. I'm always glad when Sunday comes around so we can hop in here and talk. I always like chatting and learning and figuring things out. I'm excited to cover one of the topics that we just covered on Friday. I don't know when the video is going to be ready. I'm not done editing it yet. But it's a new technology for fighting crime. So, and it makes me wonder why we haven't seen it in places where like there's not a lot of cell coverage like the Idaho 4 or Delphi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why are we not pulling there's big question marks around where Richard Allen parked, right? And where he was walking. So he didn't have his cell phone on him? I don't remember those details, but I feel like if somebody has their cell phone on them, based on the technology that we just listened to, we should be able to track them.
I mean, nobody knows what you're talking about because
No,
they
I
haven't
know.
seen it. But Richard Allen, he claims that he parked at the old Farm Bureau building, which is basically in downtown Delphi. But in his probable cause affidavit, it says that he parked at the old Child Services building, which is more out of town and way closer to the bridge. So, I mean, it is, when we were talking about it in a recent video, I looked up the round trip time. I mean, it was like 3 miles or something like that, and that is kind of far, like, if you're planning on going to a bridge. But my question was, is there a trail? Is this something he started doing for exercise? Did he do it, like, regularly? Has he ever done it before? Like, because I could see it reasonable to go for a 3-mile walk for exercise or run.
Yeah.
Like, I knew somebody who literally ran 5 miles every morning in California and went
Yeah.
to college and worked multiple jobs.
So I don't think that's Richard Allen, to be fair, right? Because I know a lot of people too that are that way, but they look like runners.
Yeah, he
Richard
doesn't look
Allen
like
does not
one.
look like a runner.
You're right.
And huge shout out to Chrissy. Welcome, new member. That's incredible. Welcome to the
He may
Thought
not be
Riot.
running though. He could have walked.
No, I agree. I don't think 3 miles is very long for a walk.
No, it's not.
If you have like 45 minutes, because that's about what it would take if you're walking fast. But yeah, 10 miles is cake also for runners, for people who are conditioned to be able to do that. So I agree with you. I'm just trying to think of new ways that this technology, which I get you guys haven't heard yet, but you will. I'm just teasing you so you want to hear about it, right? But this technology should be able to be used in most situations where there's not triangulation available. So hopefully we'll get into it this week, probably in the second half of the week. But yes, I saw someone shout this out, and I should have opened with this. Absolutely. Yeah, we just want to say thank you to all of our viewers. We have made incredible progress in such a short time. So, we started creating videos last November or December or something like that, but we didn't have our topics down. We didn't have our direction down. We were kind of trying to figure things out. And we went full-time true crime about 4 or 5 months ago, in between 4 and 5 months ago. And that's really when we started picking up the steam and things started to just click. It's just been significant upwards progress nonstop from that time. I think one of our first videos, we jumped from like a couple hundred subs to a couple thousand subs, and we just hit 6,000. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. And the way that we run the show, I really feel like we are all Thought Riot podcast. A lot of our topics come from you guys. A lot of me learning, a lot of my growth in in touching these topics and some of the details around them is directly because of our community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or getting the topics to research then and look into further. So, you know, in that 4 months, we were in the top 15% of most viewed for Spotify. On Apple, we're actually in the top 10% of most viewed. And in two different countries at two separate times, we've been in the top 5 nationally, which is pretty incredible as well. So it should only be up and up and up from here. And I can't wait until we can go full time. When we go full time, I feel like the quality and the overall investment in everything is going to jump, and we're going to be able to cover a lot more news, be an actual news source. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I saw the Evil CJ show is in the chat, and
Oh, that's awesome.
thanks for being here. Thanks for the nice words.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
watched you before, and I appreciate your work. But
Yeah, that's
thanks
incredible.
for being here and stopping by. We really
Yeah.
appreciate that. So one of my updates this week on the podcast, which you guys have not seen yet because it's undergoing the editing process. One of my updates was about baby Zeke in Idaho.
Oh
One of the
no.
breaking news.
I'm nervous.
It's not good news.
Oh
That's why I
no.
started getting a solemn face as I was sitting here because I just saw it pop up on the news on my computer. He was found passed away in the woods.
No way,
So
dude.
if you guys don't know what happened with this, that video will be coming out. And there's details in there about the father a little bit. But yeah, there was an Amber Alert in Idaho. I think Victor, Idaho, or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But there was an Amber Alert, and the baby's mother had been found passed away by the father. And the father was clearly losing his mind. He abducted the baby and ran. He's only 10 months old. And yeah, he was found in the woods today.
Gosh, that is
And his
so awful,
well,
dude. And I don't
remember me
understand.
telling you about him being naked?
Yeah,
Well, he was naked in the woods walking around nearby.
yeah, gotcha. But so here's my big question with that. His age doesn't match the age that people normally have a mental breakdown. So do they have any idea what this is?
He's 48.
Yeah, it's normally late 20s. It is normally for people to have like your classic schizophrenia, schizoaffective, you know, some major mental instabilities. It's usually towards the end of your frontal lobe developing, which is mid to late 20s is where you classically see it most of the time. I understand that there's going to be people outside of that statistic, but does he already have one of these disorders and he stopped taking his meds?
I
Like,
don't know.
what caused this mental breakdown of his to lose it? He's literally lost it.
He lost it. So it says that he has been apprehended, obviously, and they're taking him for a psychiatric evaluation. But I mean, I haven't heard anywhere that he had some kind of psychological condition. He, I believe, was a mechanic. And by all accounts, from everything I've heard from the family and, just what their life was before this tragedy, before he murdered his wife and took the baby, um, they seem pretty normal. Like the mom was an artist, he was a mechanic. They seem
That's
like
what
a
I'm
hardworking
saying. That's
family.
why I'm shocked.
She posted stuff to social media and they seemed all right, and then all of a sudden, like she turns up, passed away. He's naked in a convenience store, and then he runs off with the baby. Well,
That's why I'm
convenience
shocked
store
for that
first.
reason.
Convenience store first, then her, then he runs off with the baby, and now this.
I don't get it. I don't understand it.
He was 48, Miss Kelly.
Yeah, so a pretty rare age to have like your classic mental breakdown.
You're talking
Yeah,
about like one of those conditions,
correct. So this is a true psychosis breakdown, you guys. So what I mean by that is I understand you can have a mental breakdown at any age, but at this severe, it is very, very, very uncommon without a catalyst of drugs or a chemical imbalance. This is like it. This is as bad as you can get. This is as far as you can go. There's nothing worse than this. Complete and total loss of reality here. Uh, and I'm assuming, right? Because clearly their lives were okay all the way up into this, and then he ended everything. You know what I mean? So I'm assuming there is a total loss of reality here. But that's very uncommon at 48. Normally we see it when the frontal lobe is just about developing from mid 20s to late 20s. That's where you see schizophrenia come out. That's where you see high intensive manic depression come out. That's when you see schizoaffective come out. And that's when normally, medication starts and things like that. But with other mental breaks later on in life, normally there is a drug catalyst. And I'm not just
Oh,
saying street drugs. I'm also saying you could have a reaction to a prescription drug, Yeah, or bipolar, untreated, right? And that's why the reason why I'm asking, because this is such a horrible story, right? And I'm asking for selfish reasons because I want to understand why someone out of nowhere could go out of their way and commit such a heinous act like this to a baby, a child, an infant. You know what I mean? Um, and after living together and there being no problems like this prior, or from what it seems, no problems prior to this, I'm just trying to connect dots here.
yeah, so I just pulled up National Institutes of Health, and it says in the majority of cases, psychosis late in life occurs due to underlying medical illness,
Mm,
medications, or illicit drugs.
right.
Um, this also talks about a brief psychotic disorder can be triggered by extreme stress, such as a traumatic accident or loss of a loved one. Can you imagine? And it says this is most often when that brief period of psychosis is experienced by people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. So he's 48. He's on like the later part of the spectrum, but can you imagine reawakening from a brief psychotic break and realizing you just took the life of your baby and your wife? Like you come to. That would be the most
Devastating, horrible.
yeah. Then
I can't even imagine that.
I think you would be psychotic probably at that point for the rest of your life.
But I've always wondered, right? Because psychology, sociology, the mental of masses essentially has always intrigued me in wanting to understand like how it works and everything. Were there are there signs before it gets to this point? You know
Right.
what I mean?
Well, he was naked in that store and he was leaning over trying to
Right.
get a cigarette, and then he was taken for a psychiatric evaluation and then released. And then
Yeah.
that night he went home and killed his wife and took the baby.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, is there some kind of failure here on, whoever took him in? He clearly shouldn't have been released. How psychotic was he continuing to be? Because when he was found and the baby was found, a hunter called in and said there was a man sleeping in a sleeping bag on the side of the road and was naked and saying weird things. Like, so he's clearly like gone, like real gone,
Yeah.
and then they found the baby. But it's like, should he have ever been released? Is
Yeah, I
that a
don't
failure? Insurance is a big one, Kimmy. You're absolutely right.
I think it matters in what state you're in because the rule of thumb, at least in California, is if you get picked up, it's a minimum 72-hour hold. It can be extended to 10 days, but it's 72 hours to assess, what's
Hmm.
going on if you get
So
picked up.
shouldn't have been same day.
Well, it shouldn't have been, but I've never been married and taken to a mental,
Hmm.
whatever you call it, right? Wherever he was taken to the lockdown facility part of a hospital. Um, can your significant other sign you out, taking liability for you, you know, or assuming
It
liability?
didn't sound like that's what happened just because the way they describe it, but I don't know. There's no way to know if she signed him out or not, but it sounded like he was released and then went home and killed her.
Yeah,
That's how they
jeez.
made it sound. But I like there's no way to know for sure, but sure, I mean, I guess somebody could do that. Um,
Yeah, I
but
don't
he,
know.
he
I guess
just
we'll just have to watch it. It's just a really crappy situation. Awful.
yeah.
Horrible.
It's really, really, really sad. It's like
Yeah.
it's a whole family essentially annihilated. He's gonna be gone forever, and he should be, and then, the baby and the mom, they're all
Yeah.
gone. I just can't
It's
imagine,
absolutely horrible.
especially for
Absolutely
their
horrible.
loved ones, like the grandparents and stuff who just he's only 10 months old.
Yep.
Everybody had to have been so happy to have him, there.
Yep.
Usually new babies are like a really exciting thing for everybody in the family,
Yep.
so it's just really, really sad.
It is. Hey, AR Hayes. Welcome, welcome.
Yes, good to
Super
see
stoked
you.
to have you come hang out. Um, all right. So go out of that really sad story. I don't even want to know what happened to the baby. If you guys are
Yeah.
curious about that, look it up.
They
I don't
haven't
want to
released
know.
those details.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with true crime, but I'm the type of person that will stop when it gets to the pictures. I just don't want to see I just don't want to see the images, you know. Oh, hey, Duty Ron in the house.
Yeah, good to see you, and thanks for the super chat. Due to mental health reform in multiple states in the US, many people who require long-term care and treatment do not receive the proper treatment. Our system is broken. Thanks for your coverage. Oh,
Yeah.
we appreciate that, Duty Ron.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We'll leave that one up. So, uh, and that's such a great point. That's such a great point. So we have quite a few family members that deal with addiction, which is a mental health issue.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that a lot of times insurances don't cover addiction in the right way, and you'll go to a hospital to try and get off, and maybe you hit rock bottom or something like that, where you want treatment, but the rehabs will only accept you after your health insurance has approved like a certain amount of days, and most of the time it's not even isn't most of the time 28 days? I think they approve 28 days most of the time,
From what
which
I've seen,
doesn't work for most people. For most people,
yeah, it's not enough.
over half of people that deal with addiction need somewhere from 90 to like 120 days. I don't remember the stats. I haven't looked into them in a long, 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 long time, but I believe it's something like that. So I can only imagine dealing with shorter term mental health issues like a mental breakdown, you know, where you need to quickly get on medication or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, maybe. Or, oh, you know what? Wait, didn't you say he was a mechanic and she was an artist?
Yeah.
So I wonder if they didn't have health care.
It's possible they did not.
And that's what sparked the release.
Yep. It's
So
possible.
that's scary, dude.
That is scary, especially if somebody's dangerous because they're psychotic, like,
Yeah,
that's very scary,
absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. Jeez.
Yeah, there needs to be some kinds of laws around that I mean, I'm sure there already are some, but I'm sure there's a lot of ways to get out of them, where you like, if they release you and you go on to commit a crime and they find that you were negligent in treating that patient and holding them, like, there were signs there that they should be held, and those signs need to be clearly, written in the law, then they're liable, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yep.
how I see it. They should be liable
I
if they
mean,
release them like that.
I think they are. I think they are.
Yeah,
And
but
what's interesting,
they rarely get held
no,
accountable.
you're right. Not real accountability, but you got to remember that like healthcare accountability is very different. Where Malia has people in her family that work in healthcare. I have
A
people in
lot.
my family that work in healthcare, and one of them deals directly with like the billing, the money, the management of that health of those healthcare systems. And hospitals have some of the highest insurance coverage of any business. So a lot of times what hospitals will do in situations like this is try and get in front of a lawsuit. So they'll just offer it a big payout. So there is no real accountability because they're more worried about making sure the information doesn't get out. So they will step up and pay out quick. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And yes, that creates a situation where less people are held accountable. So no change occurs. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah, Kimmy just said there's a new Senate bill, Bill 44 that just passed just about that.
Oh
That
man, we're gonna
that's
have to look
awesome,
into
but
that.
it's for minors, yeah. I'm gonna have to write that down. Thanks for mentioning it, Kimmy. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't know enough about this
Oh, me
issue.
neither.
I don't know enough, and I want to know more, and I remember I saw Michael, little earlier in the chat said that king of the chat, that, we closed the asylums too soon, and I agree with you. I know that when I lived in, Northern California for a while, there was talk around the town because there were so many homeless people on the streets. And it's usually not as bad up there as it is in like downtown San Francisco and LA. And it was really, really bad at the time. And the what everyone was saying is that the asylums got closed, and then all of the homeless, like when certain things go on in the city, they give all those homeless people bus fare and tell them to leave, and so they all migrate outwards on the outskirts cities and then wait for that event to be over and then just go right back.
Yeah.
And a lot of those homeless people were so out of their minds. Like they should not have been
Well,
on the streets. They should have been in mental health, like
so
getting mental health help.
so have you heard of the homeless pass around game that happens too? And I don't want to get too political here, so we'll these are like hyper politicized topics here,
Okay.
but a lot of states will send homeless people back and forth where they'll offer free bus tickets to try and reduce some of those areas if their crime rates are getting too high, if they're having if their jails are getting full, things like that. But yeah, I agree. I feel like there should be a different route. We should have different opportunities to help fix some of that in any state,
Yeah.
anywhere. And I think it would reduce these kinds of issues with the proper systems put in place. One thing I did want to say is it's funny, we have AR who hopped on here and Duty Ron, and I believe we gave both of you a shout out in the recent podcast that we just covered, which gets a lot more views than even our YouTube videos do. So hopefully you'll get some thought rioters over there. And what's nice is I would say everyone in our community is super positive and
Yeah.
respectful. So
So if you guys haven't checked out Duty Ron, A Convict's Thoughts with AR Hayes, or the Evil CJ show, they're all incredible, really positive content creators,
which is phenomenal. Yeah.
critical thinking. And I appreciate every single one of you, and I appreciate you guys being here and supporting our channel. And,
Yeah.
you know, I would love to collaborate with each and every one of you eventually.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what I wanna know. Why let out of the hospital? Why was he let out of the hospital? And Micro Kimmy said that actually that Senate bill was for adults and minors. She just wanted to make that clarification. But
Hey,
that is amazing.
if we can start, wait, it's for adults and
Yeah,
minors?
she wanted to
Okay.
clarify that
Okay.
it was
Okay.
for both.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I mean, I see it as a win, even if it's just minors, because it has to start somewhere. You know what I mean? And a
Yeah.
lot of times when you're trying to pass a new bill with like new programs, something we've never seen before. A good way to do that is to get, all the political parties bought in with children, because one thing everybody can agree on is we want to take care of our kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In anywhere, whether you have your own kids or not, it's just like an inherent thing in us all, unless you're a sociopath that, that you got to take care of kids, man. But
Exactly.
we will get into the topics here. So, we watched and premiered the 5 most damning pieces of evidence for Bryan Kohberger. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to talk about each of these, and we're going to look at them from the court standpoint. So we're going to try and bring up some of the details and or angles from the prosecution that we should expect to see, and some of the details or angles from the defense that we should expect to see. Now, I found it super interesting that they said that it was 5 but only offered 4.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that was like maybe an issue from the editor because like marketing wise,
Oh, that's a good read. Yeah.
5 sounds a lot better than 4. And I think when they went through editing that, they were like, wait, well, I guess we could kind of make the last one 5 since it's kind of like unknown. I don't know. I think it was a marketing choice.
Or maybe yeah, I don't want to go too far into that, but he could have an at-home recording studio and record his stuff and then send it into the editor, and for whatever reason his number 5 just wasn't up to par.
Yeah.
So they kind of dropped it and used just some of the other filler, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
But I thought it was super funny. Do you remember what the first one was?
What? No, you should have written them down.
Yeah, I should have.
You didn't write them down?
No, pull it up real quick.
I will pull it up. Actually, I'm going to do it on here. Not on my little side computer. But yeah, it's so Ian actually, prisoner of the chat, if you guys have seen. He's often here. I don't know if he's here right now, but he actually sent us this video and said, a response to this would be awesome. And I decided to do it. And it is labeled Coburger's like 5 pieces of most damning evidence. And it is on the Sidebar podcast. Here it is. Oops. Here we go. Okay. And they went through it with Bryan Inton, and it's Jesse Weber, right? Yeah, Jesse Weber's the host of this podcast. Here, let me pause for 1 second because I saw Duty Ron say something. Court decisions in the 1970s established a patient's right to refuse treatment, which many exercise. Medical advances in drug therapy allowed many to leave traditional institutions, return to their... I don't know.
Yeah,
it got cut off.
In 1970s established a patient's rights to refuse treatment. Yeah, which many exercise. So, yeah, actually, I do know what you're talking about, Duty Ron. So I think there is one specific reason that they can hold you without your consent, like a 5150, and you have to clearly show that you're a danger to yourself or a danger to others. So if he didn't do that, if he didn't prove that he was a danger to himself or a danger to others, like from what I've heard in doctors, it has to be over the top clear. Then that could be why they didn't hold him to.
Yeah, I understand that. Like maybe he wasn't meeting the threshold of like, harm he could do, like insanity, to where that he's like he could be a harm to others or himself.
Yeah.
Like if he wasn't meeting their criteria, whatever that is, I guess I could see, him refusing treatment and then them letting him go. But after what happened, it makes you wonder, Like,
Yeah.
did they release him because he didn't have insurance and they knew they'd never get paid? Like, I don't know. I hope that's not the case. But, I mean, the right to refusing treatment, I think, is important. It's important to have, but in the same respect, if somebody's showing signs of, hurt c potentially hurting people or being psychotic to the point where they don't know what reality is, I think they should be able to be held.
Yeah. No,
It
I
just
agree.
it's also a scary situation when, somebody is being accused or 'cause you guys, I'm sure, have seen movies, and I know there's some real life situations that have happened like this where somebody's been stuck in a mental hospital and can't get out because of family members and stuff painting them as crazy. That's also a super scary situation.
Yep. Yep, it is. It is. Okay, so do you remember what they are? I can almost guarantee. So it is the cell phone pings, it is the DNA, it is the car, and it is the what? What am I missing? Cell phone pings, car,
There's only 4,
DNA.
and the last is just nothing.
No, that was 3.
Oh,
Cell
Dylan.
phone. Oh, okay. Eyewitness
Dylan.
account. That's right. Duh. I don't know how I missed that. Okay, so what should we start with? Should we start with the big one, the obvious one with DNA?
Yeah.
Okay. So I do have a question for everybody too. And I took a poll. Sorry if that causes background noise, you guys. I wanted to fix the mic. Sometimes when you grab it, it'll cause like fuzzing or whatever. Okay, so I did a poll, and we love our polls at Thought Riot. Let me see here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so there we go. Under what circumstances do you believe the DNA could be thrown out? Could be thrown out. Obviously, this is theoretical. Just just to see if it could get thrown out. What do you think the reason could be? And we had 29% that said, I don't believe it will be. 35% said they won't be able to show their work product or chain of custody. 27% illegal gathering and or testing of DNA. 6% mistaken the work product, and 3% none of the above. So with all the hyper focus on the DNA lately, right? Because it was due December 1st for a private overview with the judge. What do they call it again? The in-camera review. The
Yep.
in-camera review with Judge. And we're not going to see the details of it. And you even speculated that the request that came on the 28th or 29th in the documents was specifically asking to gag that DNA evidence beforehand. So
Yep.
if that's the case, we aren't going to know any of that until it comes to the trial. Like, it's just not going to happen. So with all this focus on the DNA, do you believe that the DNA could get thrown out? And the reason why I'm asking this, you guys, is one, is included in our video, and two, Ashley Banfield actually came out with a video asking what's going to happen if the defense gets the DNA thrown out, which I was surprised to see, honestly.
I
Like,
think
I
the
was really shocked to see that, but
I think the case will fall apart.
I I agree. I agree.
Banfield has gotten so much hate. I guarantee she's seen it, and I know somebody who knows her personally, who says that, she's kind of a nightmare to off camera.
Ugh.
But she's like a mega nightmare to work with, off camera. But, I think that she probably sees the comments and she might try to be a little bit more unbiased, considering that's what News Nation
Do
advertises,
you
that they have unbiased coverage.
do you think they're allowed to actually be their own people, though? Do you think the character that they play in front of the camera is their own character, or do they have a director behind the camera that is like, hey, what's going on tonight? You are not your normal, like, kick in the butt, biased self. You know
Um,
what I mean? Are they pushed into a certain character in front of the camera, which is what a lot of people feel like with mainstream media.
hmm. Well, I think that obviously if you're in front of a camera and you're a news anchor, you have to be like people want to watch you. Like you have to be convincing. You have to capture people's attention. But in the same respect, I do think they have a little more authority over how they present themselves, especially when you have your own show on a platform.
Ye
Like, it's not just she's an anchor
but
on News
it's
Nation,
not though.
it is her own show.
It's not though. It is the show of the network
Yeah,
supporting her. So, like this show right here, you guys, all of you and us, this is our show. We are not presenting this for any other network out there. We have a partnership with YouTube and, payment services through views, all that good stuff. You guys know how it works. Now, that is not this is not a contractual position with YouTube. With mainstream media,
right.
those are contractual
Like, she
shows.
doesn't own it,
Correct.
is what you're saying.
The network owns it.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right, you're right.
So it makes me wonder, how legitimate are these people? Because I mean, you have so many people out there that in the world that are super open-minded. I mean, you can look at our whole community, even the people that believe hardcore and unwilling to change that Bryan Kohberger's guilty, and the people that believe hardcore and unwilling to change that he's innocent. They're still open-minded enough to communicate and talk and at least look at the potential of other theories. Now, when you watch mainstream media, you do not see that. Absolutely do not see that. Very, 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 very rarely do you ever see one of these anchors, one of these show hosts come out and say, yeah, that's a good point, but let's look at the other side here. How could it, you know what I mean? There is no looking at the other side. It's like it doesn't exist. And it's presented in a biased way, an offensively biased
You
way
know,
most
I'll
times.
ask some questions about it because I'm curious, but I do think I don't think that they're like, this is exactly how you need to act. I think a lot of it's her, but I'm sure she has to like sensationalize everything and like, I'm sure she has to put on some kind of act. And they want those ratings, they want those views. And if what she's doing isn't getting those views, then she's got to change it to get those views. You know what I mean? Which is why I think it could be why she's becoming a little more unbiased towards this case because of how much hate she's gotten.
I
Like,
mean, it's all kind of happened at once. I
you're
don't know if
right.
everyone noticed
It
that,
did.
but every mainstream media news anchor and source has all of a sudden opened the floodgates to become willing to look at other theories. It was one after another after another. First, you heard Enton
Yep.
asking questions, like more open-minded questions while in Moscow. I've heard Jesse Weber being more open-minded. Now, the video with what's her face? The attorney. What's her
Banfield?
No, 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 no,
What
no.
attorney?
On Jesse Weber's show. The
Huh?
attorney you like.
Andrea Burkhart.
Yeah, Andrea Burkhart. Now, that was that was
I
a
that's what
bad
I
look for Jesse Weber,
That's what
but
I thought I said. I thought I said Burkhart.
uh
I thought I did, but it came out Banfield.
that was a bad look for him. But
Yeah.
I have seen other shows where
My
he's
hair's
been
falling.
way more open-minded. We even saw Nancy Grace coming out and making it seem like there's a possibility he's innocent. So this has changed quite a bit all in the last few weeks, which is phenomenal. I mean, it's great. But is it like they all got together and had a conversation? You know what I mean?
I don't think so.
Right, right.
I don't think that they're gonna get together and have a conversation about it at all.
No, right.
I get what you're saying, though. It's weird that it happens all at once, but honestly, I think it's because they're seeing the feedback from these online communities.
Exactly. That's what I think too. They're businesses, you guys.
But
They
look,
run on statistical. Oh, yes.
thank
I
you for
clicked
this.
on it and then totally started thinking.
Thank you for the super chat, Ian. That's why they're anchors. They keep you in one
Right,
position.
right.
That's like a really good comment.
That is. And it's
I
funny
did
because it's the truth.
I did also want to say that the Evil CJ show said that they get paid $18. Did you say per thousand views?
No, YouTube.
Who? What?
That's
YouTube?
YouTube.
Are you sure?
If you meet all criteria, I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
if
thought
you
he
follow
was.
the guidelines. Yep.
I thought he was talking about news anchors.
No. News anchors are contractual.
Okay.
It's
So
different
is it
for
like a
every
salary?
anchor. You have what's his face that is going through a divorce, and he's very aggressive in the way he presents himself.
Mm.
He's like a far right anchor. He's a young guy. Steven Crowder.
Yeah.
Steven Crowder's contract that he turned down was like, I don't even remember what it was. It was an insane amount of money though. So it varies from person to person, which is
Yeah.
my point for proving it's a contract. It's based on your following. It's based on what the network believes that you're going to be worth to them. You know what I mean?
Yep. For sure. That makes sense. But yeah,
That's interesting. I didn't
did you
realize that Tucker Carlson had spoke about. I stopped watching politics, you guys, probably
but
about a year ago, but it's interesting that Tucker Carlson is saying that's how it was when he was there. I didn't know that.
like he was being puppeted. Thank you, Elliot, for that. I didn't know
Yeah.
that either. But yes, AR, I think most content creators are on board with you on that,
What?
that people like us,
Mhm.
AR, other true crime content creators, a lot of times that's the purpose is because you don't really like mainstream media.
Yeah.
You want to have discourse, you want a community, you want to have free thought,
50
which
million on Crowder. That's right. Thank you, Lynn. That's yes.
and thank you for the super sticker, Truth and Translucent. We
Yes.
appreciate that.
We appreciate you. So where was I going with that? Oh, before we pause to give shout
Yep.
outs. So with mainstream media, a lot of times they are a business, okay? And business are ran on statistics. So um it it's similar to what we're doing here. I mean, I gotta be honest. I don't want to make it seem like we're like mainstream media, but we get a lot of our stories, a lot of our topics, and a lot of our information from our community.
Yeah.
And I think that mainstream media does it in the same way, but their demographic that's watching their network obviously is going to be much different than like our demographic here who's involved in our community. So they're going to cater it to whatever that demographic wants, needs, feels, sees. So what has changed along the way? Is it the coverage that we're seeing on the case, the pretrial? Is the pretrial honestly changing the opinion of people to where now we have mainstream media changing and becoming more willing to drop this incel theory and give an opposing argument to the likelihood of him being innocent,
Yeah. I like that it's changing.
Yeah.
It needs
I
it
mean, I don't know
needed
if it's honestly
it
changing,
needed to
but
be, but it's becoming a little bit more balanced. They're at least entertaining talking about it instead of just hammering down.
yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. I just think it's important in any opinion, any theory, and any idea that the truth is the truth. Okay. I'm sure you guys are the same way. I'm not so interested in somebody's personal opinion of the truth. I would really just prefer to see how the chips fall, honestly, transparently, openly. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Not how someone saw the chips fall. And there's not a lot of room for debate and argument in that. So when you have mainstream media who's coming on here and drawing lines of connection in this case, I think it's deterring people more than it's making people want to continue watching them.
Yeah.
It's pushing people away
Yeah.
because look, we're human beings. We're going to draw connections from any situation we're involved in, whether it's watching a show, whether it's something we're involved in, we're going to draw connections. And the obvious connection is, ooh, what if I was innocent and I got arrested and mainstream media
I
is
know.
treating me this way? Is that fair? Is that okay? Would I be okay with that? Would I feel okay if a family member had it happen? You know
Well,
what I mean?
you
Like
know
there's the obvious connections.
you know what that just reminded me of is I was watching Murdaugh's victim statements today and also his statement that he made to the court after his sentencing.
Mhm.
And he got like 27, 28 years or something like that.
Yep.
And he said in his statement to the court that he would never do anything, despite what you may hear, to hurt his wife and his child. But he said he pled guilty on these charges as like 2 weeks after he got the plea deal. He's like, I wanted to plead guilty on these. But with that, he's like, I would never hurt them. And I want people to know that. I
Yep.
have from the beginning felt that he didn't do it, that he knows what happened, in my opinion, but he's not saying because of Buster.
So many people don't agree with
I
this.
know.
So we put
I
out a
know.
video and
I
I
know.
would say most of the comments on that video are people that are like, you know, Murdaugh is so disgusting. And I
He
get it.
is. I'm not saying he's not disgusting, and
Yeah.
I want to really, really emphasize that. He is
He
disgusting.
deserves to be in
He
jail.
deserves to be in prison for the rest of his life and rot in there, okay? I agree with that, because I think whatever he did for sure led to the death of his wife and his son. I believe that
Exactly. I don't
100.
think he pulled the trigger.
But the only other thing is the 2 guns. Like, I would really like someone who feels they have a good understanding of this, one of you viewers, to explain to me a theory about the 2 different guns, switching between the guns that makes sense. Because it doesn't make sense. If he did it, then he had somebody else with him, in my mind, or he was there and watched it happen and was held at gunpoint.
Yeah.
But
I
I
don't know.
still think he needs to be in prison because he is a monster.
Yeah, the only theory that I can come up with Murdaugh for him being the trigger puller is the fact that one of them is an effective long-range rifle and one of them is a shotgun, which unless you're shooting slugs, even so, it is a much shorter range. So was this spur of the moment and he grabbed 2 different ranged weapons because he didn't know if it was going to be up close or further away? That's the only thing that I can come up with, but I still don't feel like he pulled the trigger. However, I still feel like he needs to be in prison for the rest of his life because you guys, we did a drug topic video on Murdaugh, and I don't want to get too far into Murdaugh. I want to stay on topic here. But we did a drug theory topic video with Murdaugh and the evidence of him partnering with that one guy. And I'm having an ADHD moment right now. I forget his name, but there's a local drug dealer, confirmed 100% drug dealer, like literally have pictures of arrest for transporting dope and illegals up to the ports in that area, and he was partnered with him. That's where he got his house from, that property from, all this stuff. And due to like some of the things that he was doing in there and what some of the local gangs had said, I don't believe Murdaugh could have pulled the trigger. I do not believe he could have pulled the trigger. I do believe that it's possible he could have hired someone. I do believe more than likely his family died because of stupid decisions that he made. You know, it could be punishment for getting caught doing something stupid, because when you have a drug organization that depends on you, you can't just back out, you guys. You don't get that choice.
Yeah, we made a Murdaugh drug theory video if you guys missed it and want to go check it out. It was a while back, but I want to say goodnight to the Evil CJ show. Thanks for
Yeah, good
stopping
night.
by.
We'll
And
come we'll come check you out one time when you're live. We appreciate you stopping in.
yes. But yes, Cousin Eddie. Cousin Eddie is
That's not the one I was thinking.
Cousin Eddie's the one who the whole side of the road
Yep,
getting shot
yep.
thing.
It's a different guy though. The one I'm talking
The
about,
one you're talking about
the
is
drug dealer.
different.
Yeah. Yep. I don't remember his name. His dad and him were notorious drug traffickers. He has charges for large amounts of cocaine in Alabama. He also got caught by the U.S. Coast Guard with illegals on his boat. And Murdaugh was partnered with them. And that guy gave Murdaugh his house.
Yeah.
Gave it to him for $1.
Yeah, but the reason I brought up Murdaugh, you guys should go check out that video. Maybe we can have a night talking about that and do more research, you know. And I would, Kimmy and J Ray, you guys seem to be opposing on this. I would love to hear your theories on the case. If you want to send them to me in Discord, and I'll take those into account because it's an interesting topic. But the reason I brought it up is because he went on to address many people in his life that have had a lot of issues, okay? And from media, you know, rumors being spread about them, things being said in the town that weren't maybe not necessarily true. Like, we don't know, you know, because there's like that area seems like there's people got to do what they wanted for a while. But
I mean, as long as you were in the right position,
as long as you're in the right position,
it was locally owned.
So, I mean, I don't know what's true and what's not, but it did sound like a lot of people that were close to him were being fired at, you know, like people were saying all kinds of things about them, and the media was saying a lots of things about them. And that's hard, you know, that's really hard. But whatever you were saying reminded me of that.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. We got off on a tangent. We'll try not to do that again. But going back to the DNA, okay. So looking at the DNA from the perspective of the defense and the prosecution, okay. So we talked briefly about the possibility of the DNA getting thrown out. That's how we got on the topic of mainstream media and Ashley Banfield talking about what's going to happen to the case if the DNA gets thrown out, which is interesting. I'm glad that topic was brought up. I personally, with how it's gosh, I am not good at committing to an opinion or a theory without having all the pieces. I just have such a hard time doing that. With the evidence that we have now, I do not think the DNA is going to get thrown out.
What if, okay, but
if it does get thrown out, I believe that it would be because of the chain of custody. I believe that if we find out the sheath got sent to Othram, that gives the defense a foothold to try and get that thrown out. Then depending on the history and timeline, if the defense has the ability to prove, hey, the STR profile wasn't ran until the sheath had already been shipped off, that would be huge question marks. Okay, that is a huge foothold for the defense to argue right there. But there's nothing saying that's what happened yet. That is just a theory of a possibility of what could happen when more information around the DNA comes out. But I do not think it's going to get thrown out.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention is I know Lana had a recent video, Truth and Transparency, where she read some like policies about how DNA is supposed to be handled and used and all of the things, okay? And it was really interesting. Now, she made some claims in that video that there wasn't evidence for, like Bryan Kohberger's grandmother sleeping around or something. There's no proof of that, so we don't know. But that's not why I brought it up. The reason I brought it up was because of those policies. one thing I want to mention is that there's no legalities. Those are recommendations. Like,
Right.
it's
I
like,
get that.
so one thing is
I think
that Bill Thompson was supposed to be included all the way through it. He was supposed to make sure, like, if the FBI took over this DNA, they were supposed to keep him in the loop the whole time to make sure things were being handled in a way that it could be prosecuted and there wouldn't be issues in their state because
wait,
it's
are
a
you
state
sure?
case. That was one of the policies on there, or
So
recommendations.
okay, so let me
So
ask you this before you move on to something else, because
I'm not moving on.
that's not common. It is not common that the DA needs to be involved in an entire investigation.
Well, isn't
So
that the point that I'm making right now? Is that even though it's a recommendation, that doesn't mean it's happening.
okay. Okay, but what I'm asking is what is the recommendation? Because there is not enough DAs in a state to be involved in every investigation. So what is the recommendation? That the DA should be involved in any case that they're using DNA evidence, or the DA should be involved in any capital case, or the DA should be involved in any death penalty case? Do you remember?
No.
Because that'll never happen. That's just like a nothing. There is not enough DAs to be involved in every case, so that could never happen.
Yeah, I think you're right that that's not going to happen. But the thing is she read all these recommendations. None of them are laws, though. Like, so I don't know what is actually being put into play and what is not. You know what I mean? So I don't know if those are relevant to the court. If
Yeah,
that's gonna
and
matter.
technically that bit of information doesn't have anything to do with the DNA.
I mean, it was talking about the DNA specifically.
Okay, so it it has to be about the SNP. There's no way it's the STR.
Yeah, they're talking about IgG specifically in that.
Okay, so that makes sense then, and that also makes sense why the prosecution wants to leave it out then.
Yeah, we were
So
talking specifically about the DNA. That's why I was brought that
right,
up.
but DNA is not IgG. It is STR, SNP,
Yeah.
IgG. It is everything that has to
Yeah.
do with anything, whether it's direct body DNA,
Mhm.
bodily fluid, trace DNA, it's any of that. So then you're talking, so that answered my question.
Specifically IgG, yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that law that says that all these other not law, but it is a law. I'm sorry, this one is a law, that SNP is not supposed to be able to be used in a court of law unless all other avenues have been used first. So you must be talking about that once it gets to that point in the investigation, the recommendation is to ensure that, you know, all that testing is done right, that the DA be included by that point. I'm assuming because the court knows that IgG or SNP isn't as solid as other evidence out there, meaning they want some additional accountability on it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
supposedly they're not supposed to be sent out of state either, because it's out of jurisdiction or something like that. But I don't know. I'd have to honestly go back and have that part. I kind of want to pull up that document myself to look at it, because it helps solidify it in my head if I read it myself. But yeah, I'm just wondering, is that actually going to be relevant because they're recommendations, not laws? And
No, it's not.
I'm also really curious.
We should just
What
ignore all recommendations. I'm just telling you off top.
Yeah, so I'm also wondering what got turned over about the DNA, because Bill Thompson said there was just a few like notes, like scribbles on a piece of paper, that there was no real documentation or work product to show.
I
So
know.
how
That's just
how does
ridiculous.
Judge know that he got everything? For one. For two, is it going to be just some handwritten scribbled notes? And is that going to be enough for him to actually make a real assessment on the IgG? And three, if he got handed over a bunch of documentations and work product about the IgG, why did that all of a sudden just appear? Like, I
Yeah.
have so many questions. But regardless, the only way, I think you're right, is the only way it could get thrown out is probably chain of custody. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Or
I
having
mean,
it cross-examined, like
yeah,
somebody else looking at it
yeah, but
and it being
that's without all the
irrelevant.
details, though. I wanna be very careful. I always get worried about giving my opinion on these topics because I don't want someone to listen to what we're saying and think that we did research on this, and this is what it is. So, just understand when I'm talking about the possibility of it getting thrown out, that's me making things up of what I believe could happen in a
Right.
most likely possible situation, in this case. Now, we don't know. We have no idea. Okay. The only thing we know for sure is that they have an STR, which is the standard DNA. Okay. That is the standard DNA that everyone thinks about on trace DNA, which is not bodily fluids or anything like that. And trace DNA is not reliable, and our own military doesn't allow it in court. But they have an STR profile on that, and that is what they tied to Bryan Kohberger. And that is what they are saying is a 99.99998% likelihood of being tied to Bryan Kohberger. Now, so I don't think that STR is going to get thrown out. I don't know how the defense is going to go about questioning that. If I had to assume, what I would think is that the defense is going to first do exactly what they're doing, right? Attack everything as it comes. Attack the SNP, IgG, because technically that could have been what led them to the STR being connected to Coburger. Once that doesn't work, they're just going to move up the chain or down the chain, whatever. And I do think they're going to start attacking the STR, how it was gathered, how that knife sheath was handled. Can they prove that that knife sheath was under lock and key control with zero cross contamination possibilities from the time of being found, picked up, transferred to ISP in Coeur d'Alene or whatever, tested, and do they have documentation for that sheath from step 1 to 100 and what 113? you know
Mhm.
I
So,
think that's the next thing we're gonna see.
yeah, so what I think most likely will happen is the IgG will be ruled inadmissible to court, but the defense will be able to look over it, and the STR compared to the buccal swab will be included in court as evidence, and that is what the defense is going to fight.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. And you're right, Erica Brown. I'm trying really hard to keep these topics focused on what we have in court documentation right now. But I agree with you. I think there is something to that. And I personally have a theory that part of the reason they are fighting so hard to keep the IgG SNP Othram out is I think Othram had something to do with completing that STR profile. I understand that ISP found the STR profile, but I also believe that it wasn't a full profile. Therefore, they had to get it from somewhere else. And we know Othram uses the technology with the vacuum that it can find micro particles, what most places can't find. So, could they have filled the gap on that STR? That's why I was asking the question of, was that STR found and ran in CODIS before the sheath could have been sent off if we find out it's sent off? Complete theory, though, you guys. But just to give you an understanding of why I didn't bring that up and why we were trying to keep it to court documents and records. But hey, Leslie, welcome, welcome, new member. All right.
Yes, thanks for being a member for a month, Leslie, and hello to you.
Colt Delane.
So I think that's an interesting idea, like why they're gonna get him off on a technicality rather than exonerating evidence. I think that the DNA could end up being exonerating evidence if
Agreed.
it was done in a shady way. It just kinda depends. I honestly think the defense doesn't know. I don't think they know if it is, like, I think they see issues in it, so
Yeah.
they're digging. They're unearthing the issues.
Look, if we have Bicca Barlow, who is one of the most experienced DNA, is she a technician or is she a DNA an attorney? I don't remember what her actual title was, but I think she's a scientist actually. And I think her focus, her career is on DNA, and her experience is so insane. Like, I was trying to put some of her background and experience on one of our videos, and it was too much, you guys. Like, it was 10 pages or something like that.
She's for sure a scientist.
Okay, so her focus is DNA. She's a scientist, and she works
and
on.
then she went to law school after that.
Okay.
So
essentially, she has a
master's.
You guys.
She has a master's in science. Like she has many degrees actually.
Yeah,
and then
I'm pretty sure she does have her doctorate.
And then she
when we were covering that.
Oh, okay. And then she practiced law. I mean, it might go on to say later she got her doctorate. This is like a timeline of her career.
Yeah.
But she has a lot of titles.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's studied law. She's studied genetics, DNA.
Yeah,
she's for sure a scientist.
She's a total BA essentially, and she's the one who came out as an expert testimony and said that the DNA profile was partial. Now, if you guys remember, one of the topics that we've covered the most about with this case is DNA, because we didn't know anything, because we're just a bunch of dummies and had no idea how it worked, and we had to learn. So we decided to learn with you guys and record videos as we're doing it. But I feel like I have a really good understanding of like how they compare and contrast the STR profiles now, and like what blips are, what a blob is, how the state could look at two comparing profiles of DNA and make a guesstimate of it being a match. You know what I mean? And there's so many people out there that believe that DNA is exact, like you're either a match or you're not, and it is not like that at all. It's not like that in the slightest little tiny bit. The test can show different than the original sample. It has to be, is that original sample match within the bounds of what's acceptable? Like, there's a whole bunch to it. So if you guys haven't watched our videos, you should watch them, check them out, because they're super interesting. And it makes me wonder if that STR profile was partial and ambiguous, such as Bicca Barlow says, then what portions aren't an identical match? And were those portions taken into account when they said they have a 99.9998 match?
Yeah. That's my question.
Is there a blob on there?
Is there a blob like we were talking about?
And they're saying it's a match, but it's not. And that's why I asked, when you were the video you did, the case that the video we made, that you're leading the topic on this DNA, was incredible. It taught me so much, and it makes me wonder, is there a way for there to be intentional blobs? And I'm not saying this is what's going on, but in a situation where we have police that, you know, are working a case backwards, they have their eye on the guy and they believe he's the guy and they believe that they need to get him off the street. Is there a way to create a blob if something doesn't match?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. It's all
that makes me feel a little better.
It's generated by that you know, the machine that generates the profile. Unless there's some way to alter that machine, like, cuz they were saying anything could cause it. It could be a piece of dust in the machine that could cause that blob. And my issue here, okay, is that basically I just want to say that our DNA technology now is absolutely incredible, and it's solving more cases than we've ever seen ever. And it's incredible. Not just Othram.
It literally is like,
yes,
Othram.
Othram is doing a lot with the cold cases. I understand that, but across all law enforcement and companies that handle this stuff, they're solving more cases than we've ever seen before in history. And it's absolutely wonderful and incredible. The issue, okay, that exists within that is sometimes, I think it's stretched. It's
Yeah.
stretched too much, okay? They're using profiles, they're using DNA samples that are degraded, that are partial, and they're using computer technology to try to make up some of those, missing pieces. They're being subjective and saying whether or not something that okay, so when we were looking at the two
Shout
samples,
out to
the two
Joanne.
different profiles, when they're looking at like their suspect's profile and then the one obtained from the crime
Let me see
scene,
if I can find it.
there's areas where you see the alleles, they're the spikes, and how high the spike is how much actual DNA was there for that allele. Like how much of it is actually there. So they can be short or they can be tall, but once they start getting short and misshapen, that's when they're really supposed to say that's nothing, that's some kind of inconsistency. They're not supposed to really take that into account. Um, but instead of that, they're saying, "Oh yeah, for sure that's there." Or the big, blob that we were talking about. There sometimes is a big hump, and that's supposed to be an artifact. It's supposed to mean nothing. But when the reader of this evidence of these profiles is being subjective, they could say, "Well, there could be something behind that blob." In which this is why it's really important to be able to repeat this test over and over, to have enough of the DNA to repeat it, generate a profile over and over so that they can look at those things, because the blob shouldn't pop up over and over and over. But the issue is like in Kohberger's case, if they could only do this test a single time without repeating it, and they have, these humps that are misshapen, or maybe there's a blob and they're being subjective and saying, "Oh, that's a match. There's a blob where he had this allele, that's for sure it." Then
Here's a blob.
you have a problem. You're
So
not Are you sharing it? Yeah, you're
yeah.
sharing it.
So this is the blob right here of what Malia is talking about, and essentially what can happen in a situation like this. If you guys haven't watched this, you still need to watch this video. There's so much information in there. It's literally an hour long, and our videos are normally like 20 to 30 minutes for our case files. But um, so a test, when being subjective, could take this blob and they could make an assessment that there could be a matching. Is it called an allele? Allele?
Those are alleles, yes.
Yep. So a matching allele behind it, which would increase the likelihood of them matching this the original DNA found, like on a crime scene or whatever. And so it's not 100%, you guys. That alone should prove that it's not 100%. And then when you look at other tests and you're looking at the matching, which one of these are matching? Let me see. I forget.
That's not one that matches.
Okay,
It's
okay.
very obvious when it matches.
Yeah, but there is still some variance in it too, though.
Mm,
Just a little bit. Some weren't as tall as others and things like that. I don't know where it's at, but yeah, no, it's just super, super, super interesting. Make sure you guys watch this. But all this should be taken into account when the DNA is being looked at in court. And I think that that's why the defense is attacking this. I think that if the defense gets the DNA thrown out, or something that's equally as beneficial as getting it thrown out, is getting the jury to question that DNA. I think that's a huge foothole in the case, to where they're going to have the ability to have the defense question every bit of evidence in the case.
for sure.
You know what I mean? So if I was the defense and I wanted a sure thing, I would totally go after this.
Yeah. I mean, it we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out, but it's interesting knowing that the reader of the DNA, the expert that is looking at this, if they have knowledge of the suspect, if they are working with investigators, it can become very subjective very quickly when it shouldn't be. It should be entirely objective. Like either this is a clear match or it's inconclusive.
Yeah, and what's interesting, you guys, here's another thing too, because I saw some people make comments that a partial could match millions of people. So in Florida, the court and judge allowed a DNA comparison into court that was one out of every two people were a match. 50% of the world's population matched this DNA sample. Why would you even bring that in? Unless you're the defense trying to prove a point that, hey, there's DNA on site here, and it could be half of the world's population. Like, what?
Yeah, I saw yep, yeah, exactly, Ian, exactly. It is getting harder to prove how it got there. I saw that Elliot tagged us too in something.
And you're right. We actually talk about this in our other DNA video as well, that that we're matched on literally 0.1% of the DNA. We have like something, I forget what it was. I think it's 64 billion different different DNA, the things that look like a ladder. I forget it right now. But we only need to match on like 8 million of those out of 64 billion. But what? I'm sorry.
If the defense gets the DNA suppressed, the only change will be that the state can't use it as evidence. Also, didn't the PCA say they won't be using DNA at trial? No, that's not what it said. That was the search warrant for Bryan Kohberger's
That was my
apartment.
argument.
That was the search warrant for Bryan Kohberger's apartment by Dawn Daniels, Elliot, and she said that they didn't want to use it. Like basically, if the DNA got turned over, she didn't want it to invalidate the search warrant or mess up their probable cause. Brendan and a lot of people assumed that meant that they didn't want to bring the evidence to trial, which it could mean that. It could mean that they were never going to bring it to trial. But how I read it is that they just later they were kind of saving their own butts. Like, hey, later if this gets ruled inadmissible because there's problems with it, it's not, you can't say it messed up our probable cause because we're not using it as evidence for probable cause,
Which is still super.
It's super weird.
Yeah, it leaves me with a ton of question marks, but it is what it is, and I see how it can be that. I still feel super strange about it. I'm not confident in that statement enough to say yes 100% they were planning on bringing it in there. I think that they were setting themselves up to be able to include it if it's a match and not if it wasn't, and be able to, cater to their argument. But there is no supporting evidence of that theory. That's just my personal theory because of how weird they've been about the DNA. There's something to it, right? That otherwise it wouldn't be such a huge, big stink of an issue where you have Bill Thompson saying that, yeah, we can get you handwritten notes on the DNA, on the SNP, the IgG. Like, that's just absurd, you guys. That's not how DNA is worked. I mean, the DNA profiles go through a computer database. So the fact that there's just some handwritten scribbles, I think that I think that more than likely it just wouldn't look good for the prosecution. It wouldn't look good for the state's case. So whatever that is. And that's what that is about, hiding. And I don't know if it has to do with the actual test itself or if it has to do with the fact that they sent it to Othram, because they do not want Othram in this case. They do not want it in this case at all. All right, so let's move on to the next piece of evidence. Which one do you want to hit? Do you want to hit the cell phone or do you want to hit
Let's talk
the
about the cell
car?
phones. Do cell phones.
Okay. Okay. So piece number 2, which I feel like it's good we covered DNA that long because I think it is that important to this case. I really think the DNA is going to make or break this case. It is the single piece that is going to tie it together.
The cell phones?
Yeah.
You think it's gonna tie it together?
What do you mean it's gonna tie it together?
Isn't that what you just said?
Mm-mm.
What did you say?
I don't remember now.
Okay. That's okay.
So,
I could have swore you just said that it's gonna be what ties it all together.
yeah, I don't remember what I was talking about.
Okay.
So, cell phone. Okay. So, what did Jesse Weber say in regards to the cell phone? I don't want to play that video just the same as any other content creator. So, do you remember?
No, like,
Okay.
you should have told me to take notes and write the stuff down. I don't have memory. I can't sit here and remember word for word what they said.
Okay. Really? You don't remember anything?
No.
Okay, then we'll just
I can barely
we'll just
remember
go
what
off the
I said
PCA,
5
okay?
minutes ago.
We'll go off the PCA then. And you guys know that lay off the cough meds.
He was talking about the DNA tying it together.
I don't take meds very often, you guys. Ask
Okay.
Malia, how often do I take meds? I am like anti-medications. The only medications I'll take is Dayquil.
No, it's just we both like have ADD. Like we can't remember things.
Yeah. So we'll go off the 12
But
pings,
hold on,
okay?
hold
So,
on. Marietta, thank you for gifting a membership. Appreciate that. Where's my browser?
that's super funny. People are repeating what I said. Where is
What did
it?
you say?
I don't know. I gotta find it. Someone said that's what he said.
And congratulations to whoever got it. Thank you so much, Marietta.
Yeah,
Again.
shout out to Marietta. Sorry, I'm super one-track minded. I gotta get over what I was doing to move on to something else. But thank you for that. We appreciate that. You're always coming in here and hooking people up with some memberships, and it is much appreciated and seen, and we love it. One thought riot, one people, one awesome community. All right, so the 12 pings, okay? The 12 pings. I would like to start.
Oh, J-Ray got it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's awesome.
I wish YouTube let us pick memberships, because then you could do like giveaways for things for people who, you know, I don't know, raffle type thing or whatever.
Yeah, and give it to the people specific who won it, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of crappy that they don't let you gift to specific people.
All right, so cell phone pings. I want to work backwards because I want to start with the biggest issue. So my biggest issue is that the morning after the crime,
What?
I forgot what I was saying. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
So the morning after the crime, they say that he returned back to, and I'm not going to pull up the cell map, you guys. So there's going to be a little bit of you guys needing to just take my word for it. I don't want to go through getting on the cell data map or whatever. And we've pulled it up before. So if you guys
like
are
a lot.
So the biggest issue is the morning after. In the PCA, Brett Payne is saying that he returned to the scene, but he's saying that he returned to the scene, but never disconnecting from the Washington Tower. That's not possible based on the coverage. Now, there is one tower in Pullman that has one white bar, okay? So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, watch the cell phone coverage and the GPS coverage video, and I explained it. But the white bars that give coverage, and that's what shows on that map and where that coverage goes to. Well, one of them comes to the very edge of 1122, and it says that he never lost connection returning back to the home. But it also says that he returned back to the home taking 270, which is that main highway that goes from, it's the Pullman-Moscow highway. And in order to take that highway, get off and come back to the house. Because technically, when you take that highway from Pullman, you pass 1122, get off the highway, and come back around. The cell phone wouldn't stay connected. It would not. There's 3 other cell phone towers that your cell phone would jump to, making that
So,
trip.
one thing I also noticed with that is it didn't you know how the other cell tower pings are kinda backed up a little bit with car, like, footage,
Well, yeah.
claiming they
Yep.
have footage.
Yep. That's
I
just to prove that the cell phone can be reliable,
but
which is common.
for returning to the crime scene, I don't remember there being any footage backing that up, that he traveled there that day.
No,
So
there isn't.
no, there's
But
none.
yeah, but there isn't
They
a
don't
lot. So
I know,
they
but
give a baseline
how could they have pictures of his car or video of the night and like that all the time
because
that they're talking about, but not for when he
it's because
supposedly
they
returned?
only need to prove reliability once.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if they proved it that that cell phone tower is reliably showing where he is on September 1st because and I'm making this up, you guys, but let's say on September 1st he got pulled over and has body cam footage of the exact location he was at. Then they have cell phone data showing that's where he was. Therefore, that sets the baseline that that cell phone data is correct and reliable. So, 3 weeks from September 1st, let's just say September 22nd, they needed to prove where he was within that general area. They now have at least a baseline and some proof that that cell phone data is reliable to depend on his location on the 22nd. Does that make
Mm.
sense? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
understand.
So they only need to prove it that one time. And
Yeah.
then I think that they're trying to say the rest of it is reliable. Now, that returning cell phone ping is such a big deal though. Huge, massive big deal because it is known almost all serial enders, mass enders, whatever, return to the scene of the crime. So they are depending on that to prove a character and behavioral trait of look, he is guilty. He returned to the scene of the crime and then never did again until he went home or whatever. Which I have something to say about that too. But what they're saying happened the night before with his cell phone connecting to Moscow Towers didn't do it that morning.
Hmm.
So I think that's going to be the defense's in right there. Because
Probably.
you're using the cell phone data info for the day before and proving that I drove from Washington to Moscow and down into Washington again towards the south, whatever. What's that? Clarkston
It's
or whatever?
yeah, Clarkson, Washington, and Lewiston, Idaho.
Yep. And you're using that data and it's showing me disconnecting from Pullman to a Moscow tower and then, a southern tower and so on. Then why didn't it do that the morning of the crime? I think that the defense can lean on that argument.
Yeah, but then does that may invalidate that specific time,
Yeah.
but that's also kind of implying all the other times were valid, no?
I mean, that not necessarily. That's just using the argument against them, their own argument against them. So, and that's a broad argument, not a detailed argument. Now, there's a secondary argument there that the defense could take with an expert testimony talking about how there is no way to triangulate in that location. So, it's one thing to show that somebody's cell phone is connecting from one tower to another, to another, to another. You can prove that, and that proves the general location you're in, and it doesn't prove the specific location you're in. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
So when you're
absolutely.
driving from Pullman to Moscow and you never disconnected from a Pullman tower and that Pullman tower doesn't reach that far, then more than likely you never went out of range of that tower,
Mm,
which proves you didn't go to 1122
right.
unless there's something else to it, like the phone turned off before he got there. Uh, he turned it on airplane mode before he got there. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The state's gonna have to explain that. I personally wouldn't have included that one because that is a great argument for the defense.
Yeah. Well, you know, I thought it was interesting on, it was on Defense Diaries, they
Bob
just
Mata.
yeah, Bob Mata, he just had a live with a lawyer in Indiana, and he said one thing that was really interesting to me, and that the state of Indiana is now expecting probable cause affidavits to be very inclusive now, even including things that don't point toward the defendant and could potentially point away
Great.
because a judge, any normal judge wants to know those things. And
Yeah.
throughout throughout pretrial, judges aren't combing through the discovery. They're not doing that. They only see evidence that gets brought up and brought to their attention by the state and the defense when there needs to be a decision made or, whatever. But they're not combing through discovery like that.
Yeah, but it
So the PCA is meant to be an inclusive outline, or at least they're wanting it to be more of that now, which I
I
think is a
understand.
good thing.
It is a good thing because here's the thing. Let me give you guys an example here. So let's say, what am I gonna say? Let me think of the crime here that matches it. So, um, okay, are you listening?
Yeah, I just think there might be an issue. But go ahead.
Well, what's the issue? We'll take care of it because you got to be able to pay attention.
I don't see it, so
What is there an issue in chat?
if there's an issue, just like holler at us, guys.
Yeah, you use at thought right so we know.
Yep.
Anytime there's like something going on or whatever, use at thought right. Okay. So let's say I'm at my house, okay, and somebody breaks into my house and steals my TV. All right. And we're trying to get a PCA of who did it. Now, let's say somebody came in and I had a camera in my house and have video of person 1 grabbing my TV and walking out with it, okay?
Mhm.
Then person 2 walked up to my door. They're a neighbor, okay? Person 2 is a neighbor, walks up to my door because the mailman accidentally dropped off a piece of my mail at their house and they noticed the front door was open. So they wanted to check on you and check on me, make sure I'm okay. So they walked in the house to check and make sure I was okay and touched the doorknob and all these other things as they were doing that and set the piece of mail down on the table that had their fingerprints on it. But person 1 wore gloves. I could go to the cops in that situation and tell them, "Hey, my TV was stolen," and they could, check the scene of the crime, fingerprint the scene of the crime, pick up my neighbor's fingerprints, and even though I had a video of person 1 walking in and taking my TV, person 2 looks more guilty if I leave that evidence out of a PCA. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that inclusive idea of including everything is the only way to go. That transparency is the only way to go, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. I think that
It's the
I
same thing with the DNA
I like
evidence.
the idea of the probable cause affidavit being more of an outline, like a accumulation of all the evidence, even if it doesn't look great. Just I think that's a great idea. It's like the beginning document outlining why this person should be arrested. So I think it should be as inclusive as possible.
Well, I never understood why it's not, because for
How can
me,
the judge make a good decision if he doesn't have all of it?
that's what I'm saying. And for me, like this idea that they only include, and most you guys, I know there's this big argument with this case right now where, well, this is what they always do in arrest warrants is, they're not going to include all their evidence, and they're only going to include things that prove this one person's guilt. I mean, not always, okay? There are plenty of other cases out there right now that aren't doing that, and federal cases normally don't do that. They usually don't leave anything out. And I think part of the reason is statistical evidence is evidence. It might not be concrete evidence, it might not be direct evidence, but it is evidence.
Hmm?
So including the other details in any crime case or anything gives you a better understanding of the statistical probability of their supposed arrest being correct.
Yeah, I agree
You know
with
what I
you.
mean?
I agree with you. Yep, absolutely. We kind of are off on a tangent right now, though,
A little bit.
a little bit.
But it still
So,
it still goes into the argument that could be made in the court case. So
yeah.
we can go back to the cell phone evidence.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think what was outlined in that video was just the fact that he pinged there, 12 times, returned to the crime scene, which it kind of blows my mind that people represent that him returning to the crime scene like it's a fact. When in the probable cause affidavit, they make it seem like so not a fact, like it's very questionable, even in that document.
I mean, the
Um,
way it's written makes it sound like a lie.
yeah.
In my opinion, I don't feel like it should have been written that way.
The way it's written, it looks like a very loose, like, it looks like very like they don't have much evidence to prove that.
And remember, the cell
So
phone evidence is what made me start doubting this case
yep,
because of my background. I looked at the cell phone ping evidence, and that was the first time I was like, "Ooh, there's something going on here.
yeah,
I need to start looking at this a little bit deeper."
yeah, it was weird. It's all written weird. The fact that he acts like he did all the cell phone triangulation on the phone with an FBI cast agent, like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then
Yes,
them basically
and you said this
invalidating
recently.
uh yeah, and them invalidating their own 13th ping.
Yep.
Like,
I agree.
so,
And the
I
fact
mean,
that we don't know if the phone was turned off, like you've argued multiple times, which is good because I was one of the people that automatically assumed that he turned his phone off, right? And that was my bad for assuming that when it could be a dead zone he's driving
it
through.
could be a dead zone, it could be airplane mode, and even if he turned it off, like, I don't think it's that weird, though it's questionable because there's not too many coincidences in murder, okay? But like, him turning the phone off during that time is really, really strange, but maybe he didn't. Maybe it was a dead zone or something. But even if he did turn it off, I don't think it's that weird for an insomniac who is a PhD student, who's a TA, who probably has his phone going off all the
Yeah.
time, to go for a drive late at night to try to relax and turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
A.R. Hayes actually brought up a really good point in that your phone charge, because I don't know about you, but I have a really hard time charging my phone in the car. For some reason, it just doesn't charge very fast. It charges really slow. If you turn it off, it charges like way, way faster. So
Okay.
that's also another good point. Um, that maybe he turned it off to charge his phone. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's just too many possibilities. Now, and I know that the argument is that, well, look, you got DNA, you got cell tower that puts them in the general area, even if it's not that specific. You have traffic cams. We know he was in there. His own alibi said he was driving around that night. What else is there? There's the phone being turned off or not active at the time of the crime.
Yeah. And
There
that's such a
there's
big deal.
an
I wanna
eyewitness account of bushy eyebrows.
I don't want that to be minimized, how
That's a big
important that
deal.
is, because mainstream media and so many news sources have covered the cell phone as if Bryan turned it off. And I think where that started at, and again,
It's
you
the
guys,
PCA, that's
you
where it
you
started.
got to remember, we are not here trying to prove Bryan Kohberger is innocent.
No.
That is not
No.
anywhere on my list of important things to do. It is not important to us. That is not my goal here. The goal is to analyze the evidence as it is presented in this PCA and this case. So, I just want to be clear, if we have new viewers on here, we aren't out here trying to prove his innocence. The evidence will either prove his innocence or his guilt all on its own. We don't need to be here to do that. Um, but yeah, I mean, where was I going? What was I saying again about the evidence? Oh, the cell phone pings. So it's been presented that, in my experience, and yes, it is in the PCA, that in Payne's experience, when criminals turn off their phone or
Exactly.
don't carry their phone to the crime, it like that's evidence that they have been involved and or should be looked at further into the possibility of them conducting this crime when we don't know if it's been turned off. The PCA suggests it's been turned off. The only way they would know that is if they had his phone, checked it before this PCA was created, which we know they didn't.
So
And they didn't have application warrants yet. So they couldn't have looked up the application. And the cell phone company doesn't tell you if someone turns their phone off.
so,
Yes. If you're new here,
did they
welcome. But yes, I have bad
Bryan,
ADHD.
did they
That's
specifically
funny you noticed from that.
Bryan, did they specifically say that like, when his phone pinged, those 12 previous times that he was supposedly stalking them, that it was late at night?
Yeah.
They did say that specifically in
I
the PCA?
I mean, it's assumptive. It's very, the way it's presented is yes.
We just
Yes.
read it together
Yes.
again, but, the whole thing,
That
but
makes sense.
but, um, I'm just
But
curious because
yes.
I don't remember them saying that specifically.
Yes, it is. So the way he presents it, and I don't have this word for word, so don't come after me, throw tomatoes at me if I'm wrong. Members can do that with the emotes, but it says in there that they pulled the 8456 number or whatever it is, the history of it, and it shows that at around the same time of the crime, he had been in that general area at least 12 times, is I believe what it says.
Hmm.
Yeah, 12, and then the morning is supposed to be that
But
13th
but it
ping that
didn't
they aren't.
say late at night, did it?
Yeah, well, the same time of the crime, so late at night, early morning.
Okay, around the same time of
Yep,
the crime.
yep.
Okay.
I believe I'm right on that. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what it suggests in the PCA. So,
Interesting.
but for me still, the eye opener for me is the fact that we don't know if it was turned off. And that is the story that we've all been hearing, is that he's probably guilty because he turned off his phone. Okay, I I think that is great evidence. If we can confirm that he turned off his phone, you won't be able to confirm that from wireless records. You don't get that from wireless records. There is nothing that you can go to your wireless provider like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, what's the other one in that area? US Cellular, and say, hey, can I get records of my phone being on or off? They can give you records of when the phone was connected to the tower or not, but it doesn't show on those records that, hey, the user hit the power button and turned it off. That is only something that you could gather from having the phone or from an application data from the phone, which they didn't have yet because he wasn't arrested at the time of the PCA created.
So in his alibi, did he ever mention his phone?
The phone manufacturer? No.
No, the phone, like, at all. Did he mention if he turned his phone off or anything like that?
In the PCA?
Y
No.
No, in his alibi. I
Oh,
specifically
no.
said alibi.
No. Mm-mm. No. No. Why? Where are you going with that?
I'm just curious if there's anywhere else that mentions him turning the phone off other than Payne. He's clearly making an assumption in the PCA. He's not saying that based off of evidence. He's saying that based on assumption.
Okay.
And I'm just curious if there's anywhere else to back up that idea, or if we're literally just going off of Payne's word. Now, I assume after PCA, once they arrested him and got a hold of his phone, they can prove whether or not, it was
Yeah.
off or on or whatever.
Once they get his phone, though.
Right, they gotta have their
post-arrest.
post-arrest, and
Yes.
that's what I meant also, that I've said this many times with the PCA, is I understand that's not all of the evidence. They're gonna get more after the arrest, but at the time of arrest, that's, like, the hard-hitting stuff they have at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. That's going to be a huge deal, you guys. And I think one thing that we all need to remember is there's going to be a ton of information from his application data, a ton of
Yeah.
information from his application data. And we saw in the court documents that they requested a whole bunch of different apps. And no,
I'm trying.
just leave it. Yep, I already took care of it.
No.
So they requested a whole bunch of different apps, and that could potentially show his location.
It could. There's
It
a lot
could.
there's a lot of apps, like a lot of app search warrants, a ton. And almost all of them have, like, location tracking. All of them, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, as long as your settings are turned on, and
We
that's already taken care of, guys. Just I don't want to waste a lot of time on it or anything. But we took care of it. So
Yeah, because we've had problems many times. So we did block that person.
yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to see that application data, because I don't think a lot of people understand too, and which is another reason why we touch on the cell phone data so frequently and so often is a lot of people don't understand what information comes from the cell phone and what information comes from, like, geolocation and that blended data tracking, the trilateration versus triangulation, and the application location services. That's a lot of Asians.
I am so curious what that's gonna turn out to be. I almost wonder if it's gonna change the theory.
Spotify.
What if they show that he wasn't near the house, like, that he was driving around in the area, but not on the actual road of the house? Are they going to change their theory of the case, like that he parked and ran there? Or, like, how is it gonna change based off that information? I'm super, super curious.
I don't know.
What if it comes back that geolocation data never puts him by the house? What happens? What if it's only in those surrounding roads?
I agree. And I think
That's smarter to do it that way, so it doesn't make me lean towards innocence, because I think it's smarter to do it that way.
I agree. And I wonder if they're going to drop the case or come up with an alternate theory in a situation like that. Because that cell phone data, that application data, that the blended background location, trilateration, GPS, geolocation, all that stuff, is evidence for the prosecution or the defense. It's going to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
It is, as long as he has those settings turned on. And one thing we got to remember is his focus was tech.
You're right, and it could be one or the other, but like I was saying, it could not be. It could be the state changes the case to say, "Well, then he ran there."
Yeah.
Or the defense could see, "Look, he was never by the house." I feel like regardless, even if he isn't driving right in front of 1122 King Road, the state's still gonna find a way to make it fit.
Yeah,
They're gonna change the theory a little bit of the case, which, I mean, it should change based off of the evidence, but is there more evidence to support that theory?
right, because remember, in my commission of the crime, if I'm gonna do it, I would park away from the house and hoof it. I would.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the things that make me feel really strange about this whole thing is you supposedly have someone right here, right? This criminology student that is so smart. He's going for his doctorate. He knows how to manage and handle a crime, and he drives his car right up to the front of the house. Like,
Well,
what?
to the back of the house,
Dude,
supposedly.
I've never committed a crime like that. But my first thought is if I ever drove past somewhere and it is not a main busy street like a downtown Chicago street, I need to wait like 3 months before I committed a crime there. Literally. Because what reason would I have for going down that road? And it was done the night of the crime.
Yeah, you would think he would know based off of his education so far that everything tracks you. Like, you could be tracked so many ways, um, to be really careful about that specific part of it. Like, whoever was focusing on
I
this
agree with you,
crime,
Mark.
like,
Mike.
whoever was planning this crime, I feel like heavily focused on leaving nothing in the house.
I I I agree. Well, I go back and forth because I wonder if it is that or if the crime scene was mishandled. We don't really know.
Hmm.
We don't
I
really
mean,
know.
there were kids in the house before the cops ever got there. We have a long span of 8 hours before the police got there. So, it could have for sure been tampered with in some way. I almost question sometimes if Dylan isn't off on her time, of when these things happened and how long Bryan was actually, or whoever did this was there. What if they were there a lot longer than she is, like, remembering in her head? And that's how there's a latent shoe print.
It's totally possible. I think any of these things are possible, and
And,
I think that's why using other technology to try and prove this case and reaffirm this case could be beneficial to the whole thing because the goal is to find out if Bryan is the guy.
yeah. So one thing I wanted to mention that everybody kept saying in the chat that Kaylee made a 911 call, and I was like, "Where is that coming from?" It literally came from Steve Gonzalez in an interview pretty early on in the case, but I think it was pre-Coburger arrest, and I actually saw this on it was, that Lucky guy. He was talking
Uh,
about pre-Coburger, stuff, and I'm pretty sure that was it,
that
but
guy
he
that
said he showed the
uh,
thing of the interview, and I looked at it, and he did. He said that Kaylee made a 911 call.
I mean, so you heard Steve say it?
I can pull up the interview, and we
It's
can look at
okay.
it.
It's okay. Um, we'll figure it out another time, but, yeah, I don't know.
It's no, Kaylee didn't, then who did?
What I was gonna I don't know. I've never seen that. I don't know. I don't know who Lucky is. So one thing I was gonna say, Mike, is I agree with you that a lot of people that don't have a background of crime type stuff, I think the automatic go to is that you wouldn't drive your car. And that's the wrong way to look at it, because that's outside of the norm. And in a crime, you want everything to seem normal. So the only thing you can do is to drive your own car. If you own a car and you walked there and got caught in a camera, police would be like, why are you walking here? You know, you're not wearing running clothes. If you took public transportation, again, why are you paying for public transportation? You have a car, you know what I mean? Like, the only option is to drive. But yeah, I agree 100%. Strange.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to pull it up myself, guys, but okay. I see a lot of people saying it's misinformation, which thanks for calling that out if that's the case, because it looked that way.
That's why I said,
But
did you
that
hear him
doesn't mean
say
it's
it?
no, I didn't. I saw
Otherwise, I wouldn't
I saw a
believe
screen
nothing.
I saw a screenshot of it, and you're right, I shouldn't have just taken that as fact. I
No
should have
way.
looked it back up.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm gonna pull that part up and actually post like a screen recording of it once I find it, so that we know what the truth is.
Yeah.
You know, and put that out there. I'll post it to like Twitter and Discord and stuff. I'll do it right after we hop off here because I don't want to take away from the conversation.
Yeah.
But I'll look it up. That's kind of messed up if that's the case.
I don't know who that person is, but again, I go back to, I always assume the best of somebody. And there's going to be times where we're going to say information that isn't correct, like you just said it.
Yeah.
That's probably what happened to whoever that is.
Well, he pulled up a screenshot. So if he watched the interview and took a screenshot on that specific part and that's not what it said.
Oh, got it.
Then
unless he got it from somebody else.
And just was, yeah. But I mean, I would hope you would go back and watch it. Like, I wasn't trying to say it as fact, but I was like, where is that coming from?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he said that and he showed a screenshot and I was like, oh.
I would question all of that because of how many people want the 911 call to be believed. They want it to be believed. Now, I do feel like there is some potential real evidence about that. I really do. And I just haven't talked about it yet. So until I get done doing the research, I'm not going to talk further about it. But there is some potential evidence around that in general.
I've only seen
a 911 call. That is not what I'm saying. But it is evidence around the reason why a 911 call could not have been made. So I'll cover that this Friday. I'll cover it this Friday, and I'll remind everyone when we watch it or premiere it of tonight, and then we'll go through it. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting, some of the connections that we've been able to make.
Yeah, thanks for posting that, Kimmy, and everybody else. Yeah, it may not be intentional or anything, but I don't know. I need to look it up. I need to see what part that is.
Because
I think he said it was on Fox was the interview.
Call video to... Hang on 1 second, guys. Give tip and eyebrows.
Is there a show called Fox and Friends? Yes, there is. And it was December 4th, 2022.
Okay. Okay, now we're good. Now we're good. Good. All right. So, all right, Michael, king of the chat.
Yeah, have a nice slumber, king.
Right. But I think the cell phone, the cell phone evidence is great evidence. And one thing, so I'm going to argue the side of the state for a minute here and the side of the prosecution, okay? Because a lot of us look at this case, okay? A lot of us that believe he is guilty. Definitely a lot of us that believe he is innocent, and a lot of people that aren't sure, okay? When you look at this case, it is so easy to see gaps, cracks, holes, and a general feeling of the opposite of transparency. It feels like there's something going on here, and we don't know why, because things are being done in a way that aren't common when you look at other cases of similar value. On top of the gag, on top of some of the decisions, on top of, the state saying, oh yeah, we have DNA evidence, we have some handwritten notes. Like, all these things are making people wonder why, asking questions why. Something's not adding up here, right? And more than likely it's an easy explanation to it. But one thing we got to remember is the PCA is only allowed to use so much evidence, okay?
It is?
It is, because until somebody's arrested, do you really think for somebody that doesn't have a criminal background, they're gonna go to a judge and get the judge to sign off to turn their electronic technologic life upside down to get a search warrant for his apartment, for his car, for his technology without being arrested? I don't think so. I think their only option was the triangulation and cell phone pings, was the evidence that was in there.
Yeah.
I think that was literally their only option.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah, we've been saying that. I mean, they can't get their hands on a lot of stuff until they arrest him. So there's gonna be a lot more that they're gonna go through post-arrest that they couldn't pre-arrest.
Yeah.
And it helps, either solidify the case or not.
Right, right. And I think that's where things start becoming scary, though, is because if police are doing this and believe Bryan is the guy and they're doing the right thing, then they are going to make evidence loo look like it is the most in their favor as possible. Like saying he could have returned the morning after the crime because we see signs on the Pullman cell phone tower of him traveling the direction of Moscow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those stretches.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just proving that he went to Moscow that night, but not necessarily proving he went to the home, that's not enough for me.
Yeah. You
And
mean
then
the night? So I was
try
talking in the morning, but
well,
yeah, that
e
morning one is such a big deal to me because it's just
yeah.
not possible.
Yeah.
It is impossible.
Also, I mean, do you think it's possible for them to never see the back plate of the car in any of their videos? Like, what about traffic stop CCTV footage? Doesn't that only capture the front usually?
I mean, look, that's one of the pieces of evidence that I hope they bring out that just proves without a shadow of a doubt that Bryan Kohberger is the guy, because this is a college town, and I can't tell you how many colleges I've been to party. A lot, a ton. There are like 5 main huge colleges in Southern California. ASU was the number one party school when I had just graduated out of high school, and we'd go to ASU. I've gone to Northern Cali, to San Fran's colleges. All these schools have a ton of technology, have cameras everywhere. So, do I feel like he should have been caught front and back of car? Yeah, I do. I'm surprised if they don't have a ton of camera footage.
The CCTV footage just in the PCA, it seemed more vague than I would want it to.
I agree with you. And you know
Even
what's
though it seems
interesting?
like a lot to a lot of people, I know a lot of people feel like it's a lot, but I don't feel like it's a
I
lot.
agree. I don't feel like it's a lot, especially for a college town. And you know what's really interesting is look, one argument that somebody that believes he's guilty could make, or the prosecution could make, is that Bryan would drive around at night specifically and meticulously planning his drive and direction and how to do this. And he would drive around picking the best route that has the least amount of cameras. But he hadn't lived there very long.
No. But is there any way he could get in his field, okay? Being a criminologist, studying at the university, he was trying to get internships with police departments. Is it possible he would somehow have access to maps of the
No.
CCTV footage? Like of the cameras.
Oh,
Maps of the
so
cameras.
you mean like a paper or electronic map where he could sit at home and plan his route?
Yeah, that would make it so much easier. Like, that would speed up the process a ton if he could get his hands on a CCTV camera map.
I would assume no.
That doesn't help with home cameras. He would have to drive the route and scout out the home cameras.
I would assume no. But look, this goes back to him getting caught in front of the house actually makes me feel like he's less likely to be the person. And again, you guys, if you were just hopping on here, we are not bought into Coburger being innocent. We are not bought into Coburger being guilty. We don't have enough of the puzzle. We have no idea. We're trying to figure it out, and we just see some gaps in this investigation.
Okay, so the
But,
public can get maps of CCTV cams, traffic cams.
I would want to see those to verify because I don't think you can.
Oh man,
I
I
don't
want to
think
know
you
too. Now
can.
I really want to see a map of traffic cams in that area. Bad.
Yeah, we'll look it up. We don't have the time to do it right this second, but we'll look it up. But what I was saying is
Maybe.
him getting caught in front of the house makes me feel less likely he's the guy than more likely he's the guy. Because one of the very first things I would do, okay? So
What?
I don't want to talk about me doing this crime specifically. I already did that and made me super uncomfortable. So let's say I was trying to break into a building, okay? And in that building was $1 million in gold. And it's set up in a similar way as this, that it is on a dead end road, and there's lots of homes around, and I don't know the area. I don't know what's going on, and it's a heavy foot traffic area like a college town. One of the very first things I would do before I even made the decision to do it is park my car away from the crime scene about a mile, wear jogging clothing, and go on a run and just, take a break, walk, whatever. I would be wearing super dark sunglasses so I can look around and see exactly where all these cameras were. And I wouldn't be okay. I wouldn't feel like I had a good understanding until I was able to get a 360 view of each house within the area of that house. So any building that could be like within 100 yards of wherever I was trying to plan to break into, I would need a full 360 view of each of those buildings. So are we to think that this was spur of the moment?
Hmm.
And I feel like okay, I feel like anyone would know to do that. Anybody.
But I still don't understand why you think that him being caught out front of the house makes you less likely to believe that he was a guy like that. That explanation didn't really explain that to me.
What do you just proved you were there
Huh?
by driving in front of the scene where you're did or about to commit a crime. You just placed yourself there 100%.
Okay. It couldn't be just being that dumb.
I mean, is he that dumb? That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I wouldn't think so, but
That's why it makes me feel less
It's
likely
too
he's the guy.
obvious. Like, it's way too obvious is what you're saying.
He's a criminology student.
Yeah, I see what you're
It's so
saying.
obvious.
I guess you're right.
It's
But
so obvious, and I feel like somebody that has no experience in crime, being a criminal, would know that. If someone walked up to you and said, "You have to," or something awful is gonna happen to you, just make it the worst case situation, okay? For all of you watching. If someone came up to you and said, "Look, because of this thing, you have to break into this house," is your first thing you're gonna do go and drive right in front of it? And then commit a failed three-point turn and speed off,
when I was a
making everyone look around?
dude, when I was a
Like,
teenager,
what?
I totally would have done that. But now as like I mean, that's a teenager, come on. But as like an adult,
I was doing my crimes when I was a teenager.
yeah, but I wasn't thinking like that.
Oh, I was.
I was
I
not.
absolutely was.
I was a total dummy. Like
Not me.
I was
With
just looking
crime.
to party, okay? I was not looking to be some master criminal at
See,
all.
and I did wanna be a master
looking
criminal.
I was looking to have a good time. And if
Yeah.
that meant robbing a place, okay, maybe. I guess I could be down as long as we don't get caught, but
Yeah.
I'm not putting any thought into it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get caught. I never robbed anywhere though. That never happened.
Yeah.
But I'm just
I don't
saying,
know if
I
you
know
classify
myself.
what I did as robbing, though, because doesn't robbing insinuate that there were people present?
No,
Isn't burglarizing what would be considered, like, breaking and entering, nobody present,
I don't know.
high value item type stuff?
I don't know.
Yeah, I
But
don't know.
thank you for the $10 super chat, Kimmy. We love you. In my opinion, the jury from that small town who was traumatized by this event will take it all very seriously. They have to consider the possibility of releasing him back into their community.
I agree with you, Kimmy. I agree with you, and
But
that's what
are
we
they gonna
can't happen.
wait?
Like,
But wait. Are they gonna pick jury members from the small town?
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Are they? Because I
oh
thought that
yeah.
in a case like this, they might bring them in from surrounding areas too,
I guess, but
because it is kind of a
all the
small
grand jury was from around
population.
there.
Yeah, the grand jury, but that doesn't necessarily mean the regular jury is gonna
I
be that.
mean,
I mean, the defense gets a say in the jury,
in
like,
the
at the
jury
trial, the
selection,
trial
but
jury.
not the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. No, they
No, they
can
don't.
argue to make the pool from other areas.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. They get to choose jury selection, not the jury pool. They do not get to say, "Hey, judge, we want people from this area, not this area."
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know how much leniency they'll give because this town is so small. I just don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. But I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
Oh, okay, Mish Girl, thank you. Interesting. Screenshot of his run from the Strava app. Is that from the night of the crime? Really interesting. Did you send it to Discord or email? Really interesting. If it's the night of the crime, that would be wild. I'm really curious to see those traffic cameras now, guys. Like, really, really curious. Email, thank you. August 4th. So is the Strava app must be one of those public apps where you post your runs, right? They're a live 24-hour feed. Yep. Exactly. Oh, no way, Tara. The local church has put out a statement to their parishioners to be open-minded in the case because they know Moscow Ellie is corrupt. Yeah, because they know because of Stickergate. We're coming. That's really, really interesting. Thanks for mentioning that. But we just did a video on Stickergate that will be coming out soon.
Yeah, I have a theory now after editing Stickergate and Papa Rogers.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it in the live.
Yep. So, all right, I feel like we've covered those at length. So what is did we cover DNA, cell phone, and we've been working on car, kind of. So what other car stuff is there?
Car stuff. So
Because that was
I mean, there's
considered a
also
damning piece of evidence.
well, yes, the car being, supposedly placed in the area is a damning piece of evidence, but then you have to think about, which I believe Bryan Itten brought up, that there was nothing found in the car. And that's like, whoa.
I-
How is there no DNA in the car? How is there nothing there?
No DNA.
They
No
talked about the
cleaning
shower
chemicals,
curtain.
no nothing. And you know what is so interesting? And the only way I think they could save save this idea that he took his car to the crime and was able to get in and get out without any DNA evidence is if after his drive or before his drive, do you think the prosecution can prove that he took his car in to get a tune-up and get all his filters changed? Because I don't believe it is possible to commit an act in this way and not get DNA evidence. So we're talking trace DNA, microparticles of blood and everything else that comes with it. I shouldn't have said that. Look, 333. That
What? Where's 333?
he
Oh.
that he changed his filters. I think the opening of a car door could have made that stuff move around on him. I think closing of a car door, I think a cracked window, I think AC on, I think any of that stuff could make that microparticle that we have the technology to test for go in his car.
Yeah. I
No?
think you're right. I think the air movement, I think just the act of getting in the car, I think he would have literally had to have taken a shower or wipe his entire body down and change his clothes and shoes to be able to get nothing in the car and not have any cleaning products in there.
I agree. And in my commission of the crime, I absolutely would have parked the car somewhere away from the house and walked there with a bag, leaving at the car baby wipes with peroxide in it. There's just nothing else that is good, and wiping your whole body down with peroxide before putting clean clothes on. So, but that can't be done in the time frame of this crime. It is impossible to conduct the crime in the time frame that they said it was done, go back to his car, strip everything off, wipe his body down, and even get in naked. Like it's still not enough time.
No, I mean, but that's after the crime though.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
They saw his car driving off, according to them. So
oh, yeah.
you literally have to have parked, gone in, out, and drive off all within that time.
Exactly. How did he commit the crime and then clean up to make sure not to get DNA in the car in that amount of time?
That's what I'm saying. That
Especially,
it doesn't make sense.
Especially like what if he was wearing
such a weird thing,
like
the shower curtain idea. Like
I know, and it is a weird
it's
idea.
connected to the car. What? Go ahead.
People are talking about how he wore that suit over his clothes and like the booties and everything. So, I mean, do you think that would make it faster having a suit over your body and your feet and everything being covered in a suit and just ripping that off and then getting in the car? Do you think that's sufficient to not transfer DNA and be
No,
fast
I don't.
enough?
I don't. Nope. Nope, I don't. So that's another reason why I put so much faith into this 4chan theory, you guys, is because the idea of using electrician's gloves is incredible, like amazing. I can't think of a better thing to use. Now, you have to be able to get those gloves off, which I mean, everyone knows how to take gloves off without getting stuff on it, inside out, and then pulling that stuff off or whatever. I Either way, it's just not possible. There isn't
Mhm.
enough time.
Yeah.
There is not enough time for that to happen.
It's so
It
strange.
is very strange. It is very strange.
He would have literally had to have been wearing, like, a hazmat suit that covers everything and strip it off and leave it inside out and stuff it in a bag and then have some way to clean his hands, because taking that off, you're gonna transfer DNA taking it off.
So, okay, let's play him guilty. Okay, so let me think. The most likely way this happened is
Did he make a
we
suit out of his shower curtain liner?
we I mean,
No.
maybe.
No! Okay, the thing with the shower curtain liner, here's one thing. When you take a shower, your skin cells are going all over it. Your DNA is gonna be all over it. There's no way he wouldn't have brought if he brought that shower curtain into the home, there would be his DNA all over the place. And then on top of that, I mean, I guess if you're throwing all your stuff into it, like bloody clothes and everything, then that's not as big of a deal as long as it never entered the home because it's his own DNA. So, I mean, the only way it could have been used
What
is in the car, like in the trunk, laying it down or something and putting all the clothes in there in a trash bag or something to prevent anything spreading. And it's his own DNA. His own DNA isn't going to set anything off when it's in his own car.
what if we're thinking of this backwards? What if the hazmat suit isn't used during the crime, it's used after? So he goes in with regular clothes
That's
on
what I
and just
said.
gloves on and does the crime, and he's super bloody and everything, pulls this suit out of his pocket or whatever and puts it on over his body, and then he can hop in the car because it has like banded waists and ankles or something like that, and out of there, right? That gives him the chance to drive away somewhere with this bodysuit on, holding everything inside to somewhere safe where he can then take it off effectively.
See, I posed that theory to you actually a long time ago when we first started talking about this, is that I felt like that was like the only way to not get DNA anywhere is to suit up after the crime.
Yeah.
And you were
Well,
like, I don't know,
yeah,
man.
I still don't think I think that's too much of a risk still. Even thinking about it right now, I think it's too much of a risk. I do. Because you got to think what is going to have blood on it. You have your hands out, you have your shoes and feet out, unless you put sandals in your car, put your shoes on when you step out of the car, go do whatever you're doing, go back to the car, put this suit on over all the DNA, and then take your shoes off, wrap them in plastic, and then put your feet in sandals. I mean, I don't know.
But
It's all risky.
the thing is that everyone is assuming it's this Dickie suit, okay? With a Dickie
It's
suit,
not a Dickie
it's
suit.
not
Yeah.
like a contamination suit.
Mm-mm.
That is not sufficient. That is
Yeah.
absolutely not sufficient.
They're
It would have
cotton.
to be a straight up hazmat suit, kind of like Tennessee Shine was saying. Like when there's a contamination situation in a hospital, they have excellent procedures for not allowing that to spread, where they can go in a hazmat suit, then they have like a room in between them and the outside where they, take it off and wash up and everything to make sure that you're not, spreading it. You're not bringing it out of that room, that quarantined room. So yes, there is a way to go in a home and to kill people and to not bring out DNA, if you are using those procedures, I think there's absolutely a way to do it. If you're hazmat suited up, for sure.
I
But the
believe
thing
I
is,
believe I could
but
do
the
it,
thing
but
is the
in
amount of
15 minutes.
it is the amount of time that is the issue here, and the fact that it's only 15 minutes, and that Dylan didn't see somebody in a hazmat suit. She saw somebody in a mask that only covered their nose and mouth in all black.
I know.
What I want to know is, did she see a head covering? For one, was it just the nose and mouth? Because from what she said, it's only the nose and mouth. She didn't say anything about it covering ears, head, hair. She said only nose and mouth, which makes it sound like a COVID mask. Is that enough? Literally just all black suit or hoodie and pants and a mask, COVID mask.
I don't
know. A portable decontamination room that you can get in and out of literally in seconds is what he would need.
Yeah. Or you could need, or a party house. And that's what I keep going back to is, look, like, I try my hardest to always have the back of our law enforcement and justice system. I do believe they have a really hard job, and I do believe that most of them believe they're doing the right thing and protecting the general public and society. So I try my best to give them my trust and faith in all situations. But this is a huge but, and I like big butts.
And I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny. For our short,
yeah. But I totally lost it now thinking of that.
You started thinking about that and you just got so flustered. I mean,
no.
Oh gosh, you not being able to think, it makes it so much worse.
Yeah. ADHD, that just happens sometimes. I'm cool with it. What was I talking about?
Oh man. Yep, ADHD moment.
Yeah, it happens at least once a show. What was I saying?
No.
I don't know either.
We have the ADHD emote.
Yeah, we do. We need to create shirts that are a Thought Riot shirt with ADHD.
Yeah, with the lightning bolt, man.
Oh yeah. With thank you, Heather, supporting the justice system. So I always do my absolute best to give them my faith and respect because they put their lives on the line. Like, it's not an easy job to be a police officer, to go out there and put your life on the line in horrible situations to protect the public. So I try and give them, as much respect and faith that I can. But when I see an issue, that goes out the window, and I start looking for more issues. I start looking for more things, more mistakes, more problems, more, questionable circumstances and evidence. And in this situation, there's just too much. What?
Lynn said, I'm new here. I just wanted to throw the tomato.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny.
That's what they're there for.
But yeah, thank you guys for putting up with Brendan's ADHD moments. They said it adds to your charm. Bryan said it adds to your charm.
Oh, that's good.
But it's way past more than once a show at this point. Yeah. You're being called out because you're like, it happens once a show. It happens like 10
at least once a show.
At least.
Yeah.
The way more than that normally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just part of me. It doesn't bother me. Hopefully it doesn't bother anyone else because
Yeah, and I do think being a police officer is an incredible career to be proud of. Incredible. It's just you
Agreed.
have to understand the responsibility and the weight that comes with that position, and I think most police officers do. But I think along the way somewhere, 'cause okay, I think that police officers a lot of time when they're new, they're really gung ho and inspired and like Kimmy right now, you can see it in Kimmy. She's inspired. She
Yeah.
wants to do right. You know, she
Yeah.
wants to be a really good police officer. And I think that they can a lot of them stay that way, but then eventually some of them may get tainted by the job. It's a hard job.
It's that
It's
blue
a
blood,
hard
man.
job.
It's
And
trauma
there
bonding.
are some, I think, that eventually may go down that corruption path because of how hard it is, because it's like, I'm not getting paid enough to do this crap. You know, there's a lot of ways I feel like a police officer could be tainted. I know you're not an officer yet, but you're on your way to being one.
Yeah.
And I can tell you're really inspired and, you know, really excited to, you know, get there and, you know, be a good cop and go out there and catch those bad guys or support the community. Um, and I think it's amazing and
Yeah.
I love it. It's just like you're saying, once you see those issues within a police force or certain officers, you have to ask those questions.
You do. And you know what sucks is I've known a lot of officers. I've also known even more criminals, you guys. And officers that don't easily mold and conform with the blue blood idea are usually outcasts and outsiders. And I feel like it would be a really hard situation to be a new cop and go into a department and be like, look, I'm here to protect and serve the law only. Like that is it. And not take any part in anything, not any part of the drama, not anything that is gray area. And I think those officers are outcasts. And that's the systemic issues and training issues in our police departments right now. Because I I could be wrong here, but I feel like most people want to trust and believe in our justice system and our police officers. But right now, with the things that have happened, people would be crazy not to look deeper, to look more intently into these topics and issues.
Yeah, because there's, like you're saying, some systemic issues within a lot of these police
Trauma bonding,
forces. There's
blue blood.
yeah, they're there, whether we like it or not. And there's tons of good officers out there, but there's some I mean, even good officers can get caught up in a systemic issue, something that's
I
bad.
agree.
Like, I mean,
It's
I
the
really
same
wish
issue.
I really what? Go
It's the
ahead.
same issue that we see with the fraternities, where more than likely there are a majority of good people in there, but because they're part of this group and because they're
Yeah.
potentially trauma bonded, which is what is the fraternity rushing and going through all the hazing BS, all that stuff that comes with it. It's that weird trauma bonding situation. Those officers won't make a bad decision, won't make an illegal decision, but will feel wrong calling out their fellow officers for doing that.
Yeah.
And that creates systemic
Yeah.
issues
Yeah, 'cause
right
they
there.
should be holding each other accountable.
But we don't have the systems within the police departments to push that. You
Police should
know,
be the biggest snitches among themselves.
I
Like, no officer should be able to hold your secrets.
They should be. Similar to, like, I think military, I could be wrong. I wish Michael wasn't off here, but I think in like special forces, um, you are partnered with other soldiers. So you guys have to hold each other accountable. And when one person gets in trouble, the other person gets the same thing. And it creates an accountability partnership that has been proven to be way more reliable than like a fraternity style group of people, police force style group of people. Don't take my word on that, you guys. I'm not 100% on that. I think that's what it was, the article I read, but I need to triple check that.
Okay. Mom for life, I'm really sorry to hear that. 2020, you've been waiting a minute for trial.
Jeez, that's
Yeah,
awful.
it is. And, I saw some people saying that, law enforcement don't have to give any information until trial. And that may be the case, but I don't stand with that. I don't like that. And I don't think it should be that way personally. I think
Yeah,
it should be I think the
there's a
process should be
difference between
much more transparent than it is right now. There is a difference between
legal and acceptable.
the investigation process, and then like these pretrial proceedings where they have a suspect, they have him, arrested and charged. And at that point, once they arrest him and we get a PCA, I think it should be much more transparent. And you know what? A lot of cases are. For whatever reason, on certain cases, they don't want it to be.
Right, Mike. For real. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of things we can do, a ton of things that we can do to fix it. And I just want to
Ooh,
be very clear
whoa.
here that uh we are pro police. I am pro police. I am pro
Yeah.
justice system. I am pro all of these things in our country. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be talking about them. They wouldn't be worth my time.
Yeah.
I do not talk about things that I don't care about. That it's not worth my time to
Even if
talk
you're
bad.
critical of them, that doesn't mean that you don't respect them and you're not pro police. Like, I think being critical of them is like, it's like that saying, that true friends tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Like,
Mhm.
people who care are honest. People who don't care just don't care.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
they're disconnected.
Yep.
Yep.
And that is insane, Tennessee Shine. Holy cow. That's a
Yeah.
problem.
I think you left a comment like that before. I remember reading about
Well,
that, and that's
uh,
so
she's
crazy.
in the area where the 911 call issues are in Kentucky, where
Oh,
you
jeez.
can't get an officer at your house in a timely manner. You could never see an officer if you call 911, and that's super scary.
That is terrifying,
Yeah.
terrifying. So
Dude, if I were you, Tennessee, I'd be out there protesting like every day.
right?
I would be so scared.
I know it.
Cause that's like the year we live in. You should be able to get an officer to your house.
Well,
Okay.
the way I look at it is if you pay taxes, you deserve that. I would not accept that. That is not okay. I would not let that go. I would be reaching out to politicians. I would be doing
The am
anything I could,
the
reaching out to national media to come do a story on how bad local law enforcement is for not being willing to answer 911 calls. That's dude, they need to be called
Oh,
out.
they answer them. They just don't ever get an officer to you.
I mean,
The
that's
Amber Sprattling
not
case
answering it.
is horrific in
I
that way. Like, there's literally a 911 call. They think there might have even been multiple that night.
yeah, that's not answering it in my opinion. But
Right.
understand that I have
They didn't respond to it. They answered the call, but they didn't respond to it in any kind of way.
yeah, I have a flawed idea, coming from California where if you even accidentally butt dial 911, they show up. They show up every time and it's always really quick, who knows what could happen. Somebody calling 911 and nobody saying anything. You just don't know, but um, I hope they change that, and I hope they change that quick because, in my opinion, I just don't think that's okay. I don't feel like that's acceptable, man.
Yeah, I think that it will change. I know that Amber Spradlin's family really feel like the state police are doing a good job investigating and everything. But there still hasn't been an arrest that I've seen. And I think that it'll come together eventually. There's a lot of issues in that case, man.
Yeah,
The fact that it's in a dentist's home in the area, the fact that there's like 5 people in the house at the time and not a single person has talked Like, it's a bit weird. But anyway, getting back to the Coburger thing,
Yeah.
the last one we left off on was the car. Now, the fourth one was Dylan, the
Okay.
surviving witness.
Yep. 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 Okay. Yeah. We can talk about Dylan. Do you remember what they said about it at all?
Her description that it was funny because they gave Bryan it and basically gave the description of the figure clad in black and everything, and he
Uh-huh.
said, you know, the bushy eyebrows was one of the more descriptive things that she
Uh-huh.
said. I was like, oh, okay.
Descriptive.
I think he was just like saying a politically correct kind of way. It was one of the more descriptive things that she said. Because it's like one of the most vague descriptions you could give.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
100%.
it was
And
a
it's
thinner
wrong if it's
guy
of
that was,
Bryan.
like, 5'10", which is, like, an average height, okay? Very average height for a man. You know, slim, athletic build, bushy eyebrows, like, almost anybody could match that.
Yeah. Anyone.
Anybody.
Yeah.
You could match that.
Absolutely. Maybe I was out there during that
Maybe it
time.
was you.
Right. But so going into her eyewitness account. So, man, we've talked about this a lot. And there are so many reports. There are so many documents out there. There's so many essays and writings in academia talking about the unreliability of an eyewitness statement, the unreliability of an eyewitness account. And I mean, even in police handbook type situations and training and things like that, they suggest that you don't focus on and depend on eyewitness accounts. So in this situation, I I am shocked that they leaned on the eyewitness accounts in the way that they did for the grand jury even. So, how hard are they gonna lean on the eyewitness account for the trial? I don't know.
Is there more to it that we don't know, though? Because there's the rumors about them texting supposedly that night. Is there more to the eyewitness accounts? Because we don't know much about Bethany at all. Is there more there that we don't understand yet and we don't know? I think there almost certainly has to be, especially considering the defense is saying that Bethany has exculpatory evidence.
I agree. I agree. Talking about Bethany Funks, but Bethany Funks wasn't in the PCA, so just Dylan's was. So yeah, I agree. I think the biggest question, if there's one question that the majority of people could get answered right now, it's going to be what happened in that 8 hours. Whether you think Bryan's guilty, you want to know what happened in that 8 hours. If you think Bryan Kohberger's innocent, you want to know what happened in that 8 hours. If you don't know, you want to know what happened in that 8 hours. Like, that does not make sense. How can you have an eyewitness account? How can you have and I know I'm saying everything that you guys already know and are probably already thinking, but how can you have all these details? How can you be scared? Frozen shock. Frozen shock proves that you knew there was something wrong there. That's the only thing that would cause frozen shock. But then police aren't called for 8 hours. What is going on here?
Yeah. I mean, they would know what Bethany knows because of Discovery, because they were both stated to be interviewed. It says that in the PCA that they were both interviewed.
Yeah,
But
who's saying otherwise?
somebody just said how would they know what Bethany knows and something about their interviews or whatever. I mean, it says they were both interviewed, and I like your idea of the read technique with them, especially with Dylan's statement, because that's the only one we have. Is
Especially if
is
they're
Maybe
on
they
something
didn't just
embarrassing.
make it up. Maybe they pushed her to say things, led her to say things that weren't necessarily true. I think that's a possibility.
I agree. And until people see the read technique, like I have a suggestion for you guys. When we're done with this video or tomorrow or something like that, um, look up like negative outcomes of the read technique, capital R, capital E, capital I, capital D. I think that's how it is. But
It
it
is.
is a way of interrogating, questioning, and just everyday normal conversations that police forces all across the US are trained to do. Now, the FBI, the CIA, the DOD, the ATF, the Marshal, all these other federal governments have dropped this, and a lot of them dropped it a decade ago because they don't work. They are so the percentage of ineffectiveness is so high that most of these organizations have dropped it, and they've gone to more psychological micro expression, body reading, conversation, making the person that you're interviewing feel like they have all the power in the situation, so they open up and feel more comfortable, and let stuff out. Like, that's the more common direction that these leading agencies are going. Now, with the read technique, it is all about making someone feel uncomfortable. What they'll do is they'll put someone in a room, and imagine this being someone that has never been arrested before, never been in trouble by law enforcement, never been a part of a read technique interview, just lost 4 friends, maybe feels like their life is at risk. I don't know, right? I don't know, but I imagine somebody could enter the room with high stress already. And then they take them and they put them in the corner furthest away from the door, in a chair that is lower than every other chair in the room, in a chair that is stuck to the ground and can't be moved when all the other chairs in the rooms have wheels and can move around freely and everything. And then they put 2 officers in between that person they're talking to and the door, and they come in and say, we have so much evidence. Sometimes they say that they have a whole bunch of evidence against that person. Sometimes they say they just have a whole bunch of evidence to make that other person feel like they're the expert here and they know everything that's going on, literally every detail that's going on. And then they lead them like a carrot on a fishing string. And they say stuff like, well, you know this happened, right? Of course this happened, right? Because of this.
I'm gonna go to the
And
bathroom real
this
quick.
happened, right? Because of this. And it all of a sudden you have a fully formed and functioning story that might not be the necessary truth, but because they entered that room in trauma, because they entered that room stressed out, their own memory starts changing, because that's what happens when the human mind is remembering things. Is every time you remember something, it changes a tiny bit, and that's why the human memory is not reliable. The more time that goes by, the more your brain turns each memory into better favor for you, unless it's like a PTSD situation or a highly traumatic situation. A lot of times it makes it worse, but normally it never just stays the same. So it's concerning. It's concerning because we've heard so many different things about Dylan and where she was. We've heard everything from her being on the first floor. We've heard things that maybe she was drunk, maybe she was, doing some other substance, which I'm not saying is wrong or anything, but like, these things need to be upfront and honest because they can change someone's memory in these situations. I don't care or think less of her even if she was on something. It doesn't matter to me. It just helps to understand the scene and situation if we understand that. And I'm blown away that they hinge the whole grand jury on these eyewitness statements. Blown away. Absolutely blown away. So, if you guys haven't watched the read technique video, you should totally watch it. So, when I started learning about the read technique and started doing that video and wanted to do research into it, and I have been interrogated before, full on hours of interrogation. But when I started doing my research into it, I also started researching the new leading techniques that the FBI is using, and the night and day comparison is insane. It is absolutely insane. The difference in how they're approaching a conversation, an interrogation, an interview. It is absolutely wild. And I think that if we came from a position of not trying to traumatize the person in front of us, I bet the memory and eyewitness accounts would probably be a whole lot more reliable, in my opinion. And in most handbooks too, in most law enforcement handbooks, it actually suggests to officers to not depend on eyewitness statements because people aren't dependable. We change our minds, especially if you were involved in a traumatic situation or circumstance. There's a good chance that, Dylan could come forward and say, "Hey, I'm not gonna talk. I'm taking back my statement." You know what I mean?
I'd be whoa, that would be crazy if she did.
Have I ever watched the some kind of interrogation? I don't think so. If you have easy access to that, you should send it to our email. I love watching interrogation techniques, especially now since I've learned how unreliable the read technique is and how embarrassing it is. Because remember, you guys, like, I back police officers, and part of the reason I care is finding new ways to make them more successful. And the read technique is not one of them, man. It is a corporate sales driven technique that they go from police department to police department with inflated percentages of success that is terrifying. It's scary stuff, man. Absolutely terrifying and scary stuff.
Did you watch Chris Watts's interrogation?
Mhm.
Was it all read technique?
Um, no, he came forward and
No, we didn't.
they weren't. Yeah.
He did not come forward to confess. They were interrogating him.
Yes, but he still so by the time he confessed, they were only like 25% into the interrogation. He was the furthest away from the door, and there were two officers in between him. So like the layout of the room, they were using it, but the conversation was not read technique. So the layout was, the conversation was not.
Yeah, the layout was, the conversation wasn't. You're right, because they didn't come at him with all this evidence and say, "We already know you did it," and all. It wasn't like classic read. But yes, his dad was involved in that. But I think that's because they got him to the breaking point because he talked to his dad, but he then like fully confessed to the cops. He just wanted to talk to his dad first.
Yeah.
I watched his interrogation. I followed that case so closely, like in real time as it was going on. Literally the day they went missing, him on the news, giving his weird interviews, and then him confessing and everything. I had to stop. I had to take a step away from that case, which is why he's been the only one to cover it yet on here, like some little details around it, because I can't even go into it. It bothers me too much. It was literally like affecting my mental health. I just couldn't. I couldn't go there.
Yeah.
It's such a all of these crimes we talk about are so horrible, and the people who did them are monsters, but that one just in particular, just some of them just can hit you in a spot where it really hurts,
Yeah.
like really hurts.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so Dylan, is there anything else with the surviving witnesses? I mean, Bethany, I feel like is a real wild card here. Like, she's either gonna be a crazy wild card for the state or a crazy wild card for the defense, or she's not gonna know anything. Like, we really have no idea.
Yeah. I don't know either. Okay, so here's my theory for the FBI going into the Gannon case. I agree with you. That case it got to me, man.
What, the Watts case?
No, the Gannon
Oh,
stalk
Gannon's yeah, that's a
case.
hard one too.
Yep. Um so this is my theory with Bethany. I think Bethany has evidence that could help exonerate Bryan Kohberger. And the state was trying to keep that away, okay? And the defense got word of it, and the defense went down there and found out what it was and everything like that. And part of the reason the FBI came back to the house is to test the audio to try and throw doubt on whatever Bethany's Funk statement is.
Oh.
That's what my personal theory is. There's nothing proving that, you guys. So just remember that's just theory. Nothing has come out saying that's true.
So it has nothing to do
That's
with Dylan, it has everything to do with maybe Bethany's statement.
correct. I think it has to do with Bethany's. Yep. I think that they went in there with audio testing machines to make it seem like, well, Bethany heard this, but our tests prove that that's not possible because of this and that and this and that and yada 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 yada.
You know what I'm also really curious about is if what they find in Coburger's phone. What if they find like dating profiles where he was like hooking up with chicks like on the regular? Like going out and having
Yeah,
hookups
like
all the
going to
time.
tickle parties.
Yeah, maybe that was his thing, was tickling.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, they absolute, like, I've seen it all over
Dylan lawyered up
what's a
too, though. We know for a fact Dylan lawyered up, and her stepmom's a
what's a
lawyer.
dating profile? What is one? Like a dating app?
Tinder,
So like
Bumble.
on Tinder, they have tons of tickling parties you can just go to.
Oh, cool. I guess you know from experience, right?
Yeah.
You like tickling parties?
Yeah. Because I'm not ticklish.
Yeah, I agree. I totally think that's what that's what it is. Crime Talk is that her statement didn't fit their narrative of the PCA, and so they left it out. I think that is what happened. And that's what does happen typically in PCAs, which is why I thought it was really cool that Indiana is trying to include more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're trying to like give a like more of a full outline of the case and possible exculpatory evidence instead of just only the evidence that fits the suspect, period.
Dude,
Like,
that would be so funny if in court they did have to come out and Bryan Kohberger has like a crazy popular OnlyFans
oh gosh.
of him,
Or
like just nonstop tickling people.
yeah, that would be
Something.
funny. Or
It
that
would be
he
funny.
has like a crazy sex life, like where
I agree. Where he's the opposite of an incel.
he's the opposite of everything they're saying he is. That would be pretty wild.
It would.
I don't think that's what it's gonna be, but it would be crazy.
I don't either, but it is interesting that they're not talking about that theory anymore.
Yeah, they're not talking
They
about the
have
incel
not
theory
talked
anymore.
about that theory anymore.
Yeah, they're not really.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But I do think, I believe that the FBI going back had to do with Bethany's statement. I really do. I really do. Do you remember if we heard that Bethany Funk was part of the grand jury?
Like she went there to
Yeah,
talk
her
to
statement, because they hinged the grand jury on eyewitness statement or statements.
I don't think either witness talked at the grand jury, but it's secret. We don't know.
Right.
But
right.
I think both of them left out of town and didn't want to come back, so people went to them to talk to them.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure. I'm pretty sure because there's something out there that people went to talk to them, like literally went out of state to talk to them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
know
sure
and
traveled to see them though. I'm pretty sure.
I know the defense went to Bethany. I
Yeah.
didn't know that the grand jury went
Oh, I don't know
to
about the grand
interview
jury. I don't know
both of.
about the grand jury.
Okay, so I'm talking specifically
Yeah,
about the grand jury
I
because the grand
understand that.
jury was hinged on the eyewitness testimonies.
Okay, but I'm saying I think that they went and got their statements for that. Like somebody went to go talk to them for that, like to have it.
Okay.
And it was
Okay.
used at the grand jury.
Okay. Like maybe the grand jury convened, got together, they formulated questions and sent somebody out there to talk to them.
Mm.
Yeah, because I thought it was the defense too. I thought that the only people who traveled out there to talk to Bethany was the defense, but
Okay.
I could be wrong. I was
It
just
could
trying
have
to
been.
understand the grand jury a little bit better because we already know the grand jury's totally slighted
I mean,
and
I don't
shouldn't
think
happen.
they
But
should be able, if they wanted to, like literally interview both girls.
yeah, but here's the
That's
thing
the
though, they
point of the
ask for
grand
more.
jury.
They ask for more evidence and we're told no if we're believing the statements of Gonsalves and Blum or Bloom me. Yeah,
Dude, his is it does he pronounce his name Bloom?
it's Bloomy.
It's not Bloomy. It's Bloom from what everyone's saying, but I want to know if what he pronounces his name as. Because it doesn't look like Bloom. It looks like Blum. And when you look up Howard Bloom, the way it's spelled, like the way if you know what I mean, Bloom,
This
Howard Bloom, it's like a crazy guy.
this is how I've come to learn.
I would want to pronounce it Plum.
This is how I've come to manage all words that have any association with Idaho. However, it looks like it should be pronounced, you need to pronounce it the opposite.
With Idaho, yes, but
Yeah.
Howard Blum is not from Idaho.
Yeah. He's associated. So any association.
Well, we're associated. So does that mean everyone should start mispronouncing our names?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's Blum. It's for sure Blum.
Yeah. Plum. But yeah, I think that the defense,
What?
I'm just trying to think what I believe how the defense is going to approach Dylan. Do I think the defense is going to approach Dylan and try to throw her off and stress her out to, get what they want to figure it out?
No,
Do I mean, we don't know that.
no,
That's
they
a
won't.
good why?
Dude,
Then they're
Ann
not doing
Taylor
their job.
Ann Taylor's way too smart for that. So
What's not
so
smart about that?
because she is a battered victim to the public's view. They also have to think about optics. And I don't think flustering her,
Dude,
upsetting her is going to be the
you're
right move to the
you're
jury because regardless of
you're
whether
thinking
it's
too
wrong or
aggressive.
right, the jury is not going to look kindly on the defense like
Yeah,
being mean to her
you're thinking
basically.
too aggressive. You're thinking way too aggressive.
Okay,
So
so what do you mean?
you can fluster somebody and get somebody to, trip themselves up on their own words without making it look like they're bullying her. So I am just curious if they're going to approach her in a way that they're going to, cause stress, a stressor, and to figure out if the statement is true or to find holes in the potential statement. There's no way around that. This is already going to be stressful. I'm not saying they're attacking her, but it's going to be stressful for her. Anyone who's saying that it's not, I don't know what they're talking about, but they aren't talking about that.
No, I guess I jumped to conclusions because I saw people saying that the defense was basically going to bully her and come at her and like railroad her on the
Yeah,
stand.
I
And
I don't believe that's ever needed.
It is never needed, and it looks really bad on them. It's not going to make the jurors
But
favor
stressing
Kohberger.
someone out isn't mean.
No, you're
You're
right.
just pressing on stressors to see if there is validity there. Is it going
Yeah.
to be the same story when someone is in their auto human reactionary, head, mind, whatever? And is that going to be their approach? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Because here's the thing you also need to remember. If they can prove that her statement can't be trusted, what's going to matter most? Do you really think the jury is going to say, you know what, we're putting that guy to the death penalty because his defense attorney made her cry? What?
Yeah.
No, I want the truth. And I would hope that the jury takes their job serious enough that they want the truth.
I think I really hope that they will. And they probably will. But CH, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yes.
What?
That's what I think will happen. He said it very well. They will 1 billion% treat them with kid gloves and will coddle them and do what Brendan is saying, but with compassion, supportive, and motherly. I think so too. I think that's exactly how it will go down.
Yeah. I
I
yeah.
think they're gonna try to get her to slip up.
I mean, that's the best
That's the
outcome for
point.
the defense.
Yeah, that's the point.
Is this only Bryan knows if he's not guilty, okay? I don't know if Ann Taylor believes he's not guilty. I
There's no way
don't
to know.
know. There is no way to know, but I would assume that Bryan would say something. So if they're approaching this and they both know he's not guilty, then clearly what she's saying can't be true. So then you have to approach that in that manner to show that this isn't true.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not being a jerk. I don't think you need to be a jerk. If I was ever an attorney, you can do all the things and say all the same things without being a jerk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure.
So,
Yeah. I also really wanna know about the DoorDash order.
yeah, me too.
But, so, since they didn't give a 5th piece of evidence, I'll propose one because I saw someone mention in the chat. What about the alibi being flipped as an admission of being in the area? Do you think that is another big piece of evidence? The fact that he admits he was there
Um,
in the area driving around that night?
no, no, I don't. Did he say he was in the area or did he just say he was driving?
I mean, I can pull
Do you
his
guys
alibi back
remember?
up.
It's not. It takes too much time to look stuff up while we're on here.
I mean, it doesn't. I have the court
So
website.
I
It's really
I
easy.
personally don't think that him coming out here with that alibi or non-alibi is damaging. I don't.
Really?
No, I think that
I was really scratching my head when it came out.
I think people got let down because they were hoping for something else. But if he is driving around and that's the truth, okay, the truth should be acceptable. So people should, cater their dials to uh, allowing the truth to be acceptable.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I get what you're saying, for sure.
So I don't know. The only thing is when that statement was given, it was given open-ended. So allowing for other evidence to be given.
Yeah, for
You know what I
sure.
mean?
Mhm. Yeah, it was very general intentionally so that more could be added on later, and they even had something in it, like, to where it could be added on later, basically.
Yeah.
They said something.
Yeah, the statement about essentially Ann Taylor was saying, look, we're not ready to give this, but we're gonna give this, and this is what was going on that night, with Bryan Kohberger as he
Mhm.
was driving around. So I don't think there's anything proving yet that says he was there in that area.
Yeah.
And one thing that helps him is his neighbors saying he was up late all the time. The
Yes.
cleaning, the vacuuming, you know what I mean? There was that
Well,
recorded interview of his neighbor, and she says that he's always up vacuuming and cleaning and, you know?
also him going for runs, like, him and his neighbor went for runs together late at night and did it many times, so, I mean, it's clear that you have somebody who is up late a lot, um, and going for runs, like, not just driving, but going for runs and, cleaning and doing things,
Yeah.
like, clearly he was very active at night.
Yep, I
And
agree.
it wasn't just driving around, it was other things too, so I think that I think that they're probably gonna use that to try to make some kind of like, show that this is normal for him, like, I think that's the defense's angle, what it's going to be is that, this is normal for him. It's not weird for him to be doing any of this stuff. Like, that's just who he is. He's an insomniac. So, him being up late driving at night, that's nothing.
I
Look at all these
agree.
other times he's out driving nowhere near the house. Like, he went for runs with his neighbor. He, cleans a lot at night. Like, it may be weird, but if they can show that that's very normal for him and in all the other situations, nothing nefarious was going on, then it's.
Yeah, then there's nothing to it. And leaving that open-ended in the way that they did, I think gives them the ability to change, update, or add in new information later of where he was. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
I think they're smart enough to know that just a statement, just saying, "Hey, Brian was driving at this time in this area at this night," um, isn't enough. That's not enough, right? So they need to be able to gather evidence to prove that he was in this area at this time, making it enough.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
for sure.
I really, really do think that we'll see more evidence come out. But um, if that evidence is going to help him, I don't know. I'm not sure. I just don't know.
I have no idea what's going on in the chat right now.
What do you mean?
I don't know. It just looked like it was going nuts. Brian said help and that everyone's going nuts.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I was just putting our links out there for everyone, you guys. Make sure you hop on our social medias and um that was all that on there. And one thing I did want to say is the Discord, right? So if you like getting alerts, if you want to be reminded when we're doing a premiere and when we're going live, hop on to patreon.com/Thought Riot Podcast. And there is a free tier on there to let you know updates and what's going on and alerts and pictures and things like that. And we are adding to the membership, we need to do more, and we're going to be adding to that. Especially once we're full-time. Once we're full-time, like, it'll be on, man. I can't wait till we're full-time because the editing I'm going to be able to do should be incredible. Really, my biggest issue right now is just the amount of time that it takes. But hop on Discord. Discord's on there if you want to continue the conversation. If you like continuing the conversation, hop on Discord, and it is free, completely, totally, and absolutely free. It is just a bunch of people on there that want to continue learning, growing, talking about crime, and doing it together.
That's interesting. Did you see Heather's comment right here?
What?
That the DoorDash warrant is for the home, not Xana's DoorDash account.
Whoa. That's interesting.
Yeah. That is interesting.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, good luck catching up, Kimmy. That sucks. I hated falling behind in college. What a
Yeah.
pain in the butt.
Yes.
Guys, Bryan, I know there's a lot of people who tout that theory that, DoorDash people could be like dealing while they're driving around their DoorDash. I don't put a ton of weight into that theory. I know there was a one-off situation where it happened in a totally different state across the country. But I just find it kind of hard to believe that that was going on.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
That it's hard to believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to see more to even consider that. 'Cause I just I don't know, man.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. But that is it for the show tonight. And we should have a new video to premiere tomorrow. And just remember, this week's videos that we're premiering that was recorded last Friday, they are the shorter videos because of Thanksgiving that put us behind. So we have a shorter podcast, and the normal podcast is normally between 3 to 4 hours, and this one is like 2 hours or something like that. But make sure you check us out on Spotify and Apple and Amazon and Google. And remember, I just want to tell everyone thank you again. So in the last 4 to 5 months that we've been a podcast, since we have more people on right now, on Spotify, we are in the top 15% of most viewed. We've been in the top 5 in 2 different countries. And we are in the top 10% on Apple. So we appreciate all of you. That goes to you guys for helping us get there and helping us get closer to a full-time podcast. And we will just keep at it, and it will only make the content better and better and better. And if you get a second on any of those platforms, rate us, give us a ranking, a comment, and a shout out. And we appreciate it. And we appreciate you. And you guys are all incredible. And we are all Thought Riot Podcast.
We are. All of us together.
Yes. So,
ideas combined.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Appreciate you being here and all of your input. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, we appreciate it. See you later.
Bye.